Hello, fellow superheroes. This is Spider-Man for a Cause, and it is my blessing to introduce to you the Noble Father Podcast with your host, Theopolis. In today's podcast, we'll be following the journey of a young noble father by the name of Ruben and what it means to him to be a noble father. Stay tuned for a wonderful episode. This is Spider-Man for a Cause, and I approve this message.
Well, welcome everybody to the Noble Father Podcast. I am your host, Theophilus, and this is my guest, Ruben.
Hello.
Yeah, cool. So, Ruben is a member of our community, Noble Father. We meet every Thursdays, and we have other things and other gatherings that we do, and we're all just fathers looking to do life better, and help each other to grow. And man, it's been more of a community, more of a family than anything. And today, for this podcast episode, this is a very special one. I've been wanting to have this conversation with Ruben for a long time. Actually, we haven't even really, privately connected one-on-one. So this is kind of like our very first private conversation. How are you feeling this morning?
I'm counting the blessings every day, my friend. God is good, and I got my trials and tribulations I'm facing, but at the end of the day, God's with me, and that's what's important.
That's amazing. So maybe we could start with how you came to Noble Father. Like, how did you hear about it? How did you get here?
Yeah, so this year I was going through, and I've been part of support groups before, and I knew it was imperative for me, especially with some of the things I was facing being a military man, that I need to connect with men on a different level, on a personal level. Because the reality is, God didn't make us lone wolves. He wants us to be together in a pack to be able to, strive together in this world. And so as I was going through, I saw one of your posts, and then that's when I started inquiring. I think we talked a little bit too, like a little comment back and forth.
Right.
And then I ended up joining in, and it's been truly a blessing because, as I started going to some of the meetings and just getting to know the people, it was an environment where you can tell, everybody was just bringing who they were. It was very authentic. And it was just like, come as you are. We're here to support and help where we can, but we're going to be in this together. And especially in this day and age, it's hard to find authenticity like that. And so it was like finding a golden nugget, and I just, as soon as I got in there, I was just like, okay, this is something I want to be a part of for a very long time.
Yeah, and that was and I tried to go back to figure out when was the first day you came. But I think with the registration, like it's hard to figure that out because everybody's trying to, re-register, and so we kind of lose that. But man, it's been a long time since I've done some of these guest interviews, with members on the community, and really it's just a conversation. I love to hold space for people, so when I have conversations with other guys and other fathers, I always come away thinking I should have hit the record button. So, I'm interested to hear about your life, like, however far you want to go. I'd love to hear about, the question usually that I ask is, tell me about when you became a father.
Oh, wow. Well, I started out very young. I knew what I wanted. I wanted a big family. I wanted kids. And that's the way I presented it to my wife when I was about 17 years old.
Wow.
And I told her, I was just like, we were dating. She was my first girlfriend. I didn't want anything else in life. I grew up without a father,
Wow.
raised by a single mom in San Bernardino. Anybody that knows San Bernardino, they know it's a very ghetto place, very
Yeah.
bad. Like if you run out of gas, stay in your vehicle. Don't get out. Um, but when you grow up in that kind of environment, you strive to want more. You strive to want to do better than that. And I got very blessed because I had goals set for me to get me in a better position. And so when me and my wife met, and I told her I'm a Christian, I'm joining the military, and I want a big family. Are you down for that? She's just like, okay, well, let me think about it. But the best part was when I did sign up for the military, I asked her, could she wait for me? And you know what she said? I don't know. I don't think so. And so, and even though that may sound bad, okay, that may sound bad, you got to remember, being a young teen at that time, everybody most of the time is gonna be like, oh yeah, I'll wait for you forever. You're my true love, all this stuff.
Right.
She was real. And that was a breath of fresh air because I grew up in with gangs and drugs and alcoholics that always told lies that will, make you seem like you're on top of the world, only to make you crash down later. And so for her to tell me that, I was just like, that's the one right there. And of course, as soon as I joined the military and she was there for me every step of the way, we got married, we had our kids, and I got 4 beautiful children. I got an 8-year-old right now. I got me a 16-year-old boy and a 9 and a 6-year-old little girls. And, I'm just truly blessed to be a father, to be a husband, a family man, and most importantly, just striving to be a man of God because I can't do this without him. He's the one that gave me the guide because growing up without a father, that's like you're at a disadvantage. Statistics are already against you not having a father, especially growing up in the environment that I grew up in. And so seeking God at an early age and then getting out of that environment through the military and then getting a great wife who I've been so blessed to have, I was truly, truly just in a good path for that beginning start point.
Wow. And I know faith is a huge component in your life. And it sounds like, man, you had a really good head on your shoulder, even at 17, if you're having these kind of conversations and revelations about your significant other's response to that question. How big of, like, can you walk me through your faith journey? How did you get to that at 17 without a dad? I mean, you are an anomaly, crazy anomaly, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I grew up in a Mexican family and, you get the crosses and the Our Lady of Guadalupe, the, different rosaries and all that kind of stuff. But that's all show for the most part. There's the drinking and, your family doing drugs and, everybody wants to be a gang. And it was not all of the people were bad, but to me, if you're not striving to help people, you're part of the system as well. Not doing anything is just as bad as doing the bad stuff. And my mom, being a single mom, she's limited. I had to go stay with my grandmother while she goes work, and I had a little brother. And so one of the biggest things for me was knowing that my brother, who was 5 years younger than me, no matter what path I go down, my brother wouldn't be that far behind me. I was the man of the house at a very young age. I was the father figure. I was the one that needed to make sure that I can stand up for my family. And so going through that and knowing that there was a God, but not exactly knowing how that fit, I started looking for a father figure, and at a young age you do, but in that environment you get let down, you get, things happen and you're just like, okay, well, obviously I can't trust any men. But and then God comes in, and he starts to little scriptures here and there start to pop up. And I didn't come from a religious family at all. We went to church maybe once every 3 months, and it wasn't, it was more robotic. It was just go there, hey, Hail Marys, and then come back home and not applying anything, not talking about it. My mom always did believe in God, but it's just being able to live it. That's a difference.
Right.
And so I had a relative of mine that was dying of cancer. And I started praying, just walking to school. I think it was like 14 years old. And as I started walking to school, I just started talking to God. All right, Lord, well, I pray that my family member gets healed, feels better. And as I started going on these walks, and for me, that walk was like a good 30 minutes away from home. So going there and back, you get to know God a little bit more. And
Right.
that's what I always tell people, the first step in having a relationship with God is you don't even need to go to church, to be honest. If you're skeptical, if you're afraid, just talk to him. Just like with anybody, just talk. What do you have to lose? Just one moment of just trying to have a conversation. You'll be surprised what you might get back. And that's what happened to me. And eventually I was guided. I was guided to open up the Bible.
Wow.
And then I was guided by his spirit. And the way the image that I got is like this. It's just like, it's like, Ruben, you can walk and talk with me all you want, but unless you have a map and a compass, you're never going to get to where I want you to be. And so I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, what's the map? Well, the map is my Bible. And what's the compass? My spirit is your compass. You need both of them in order to make it through to become who you need to be in this world. And so that's what I started doing. I started praying and just accepting his spirit into my life and opening up the Bible and just seeking his word. And sure enough, he opened up my eyes. And like I said, growing up in that kind of environment, you learn how to go against the world, because for them, it's just like, oh, have a drink, or hey, try this, or hey, you can sleep with this girl. And you're just a teen. And so when you don't end up going down that path that they want to do, you start getting ostracized, you start getting put down, you start, oh, you got something wrong with you, why don't you want to do what we do? But what I didn't realize is God was forming my character, because eventually, as I start growing up in the world, I realized that there's a lot of systems in which you might be the only one that has to stand up, but that's what's needed in order to make a change, to be that one person.
Wow. Wow. I mean, and from the short time that I've known you, and this you're giving me a lot of context even from just that beginning share of your childhood and how you found God. Because a lot of the times whenever I'm, I don't know how you do it, but I find myself in a difficult position or whatever. And we also do the Bible studies, for Noble Father, and you always have such good knowledge of the word, and you have such good grasp of it. You just know which verse to give in that moment of need. And it's no wonder, because I mean, you told me, you've just shared about being in the military at a very young age, and from what I know about you right now, you're still there, you're still dedicated to that, you're still part of that. And so to see, it's so amazing, it's incredible to see somebody so dedicated and somebody so like, no, you're living it, bro. You're absolutely living the faith. You are walking it, and for you to get it at such a young age, man, I wonder sometimes what my life would have been like if I got it at such a young age.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody has their timing, and I'll be honest with you. I wish I can say I stayed the course, but I didn't. When you join the military and then you start going to deployments and PTSD during certain situations, I started losing my way. And a preacher said it best. He said, "You can be a Christian for 40 years, you can do great things, start orphanages, feed the homeless, but you step out of the will of God for one moment, and you will fall like you never knew Him." And that was a path that I myself went through. And God does have his timings. God does have his reasons for the seasons. It's just being able to know that no matter what happens, when we are called to come to him, and if we have those moments where we fall, we always have that choice. That's the beautiful thing about it, the loving Father we have. He gives us choice. You can either stay down in the darkness with Satan, or you can get back up with Christ and have him reveal the glory that he has for you. There is no pain that we go through that goes to waste. There's a reason for it all. It's just being able to continuously trust in him.
Wow. Wow. And that's so interesting because as you were talking there, I just think in my head, and I tried to relate it back to myself of like, I made a decision, to when I came to the fork in the road of either to be a police officer or be a father. And when I think of you and I think of your life, choosing to go down the route of being a military man, but then also you want to be a dad, like how was that? Because when we look at social, no, not social media, if you look at media and what we know about being a military man, it's so easy to think that oh, it's doomed for failure, because military man's going to leave, and wife is going to be by themselves with their kids, and then there's going to be the separation, and it's going to be irreparable, not to mention coming back from whatever deployment and stuff, that the person may not be the same again. I mean, to me, I know that your family is still together. You're still wanting to lead, and you are still seen as the leader of the family. You walk us through how did that whole journey unfold for you?
So it definitely is a journey. It's one where no matter what happens, as long as you're willing to grow through it, you will be where you need to be. And, I wish I can say it was sunshine and rainbows, but it wasn't. There's no instruction manual that says, like, hey, you're married with a kid and you go on your first deployment. What exactly does that look like? Because every person is different, every family is different, how they handle this kind of stuff. And for me and my wife, I signed up for search and rescue. And for me, military is a good car salesman. They presented it to me like, "Are you afraid of heights?" I'm like, "No." "Do you like to swim?" "Yeah, sure, I like to swim." "All right, well, we got this special program just for you." "Okay, cool. Sign me up." Da, 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 young kid, let's go save people. I just wanted to help people. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make a difference. And obviously, when I started going through the program, I found out it was 2 years long. I found out it's a very tough program. The first eye opener was when the instructor in these like UDT shorts gives me a brick and says, "Hold it above the water and swim back and forth." And there's a group of us, and it's just like, okay, like for how long? Until I get tired. And this guy's not swimming; he's just standing there.
Wow.
So that's sort of the intro of my going into that kind of program. But for 2 years, as I was going through it, my wife actually stayed back in California, and I went to Florida to go through everything. And I wish I can say that everything went smooth for the training, but we were hit by Hurricane Ivan, part of the training as I was going through search and rescue, and that was my first time in a hurricane. And I got to tell you, man, it's one of those situations where I'm a California guy. I'm used to earthquakes. I'm not used to a ceiling lifting up. And in the military, God bless the military. They try, they really do. But they were like, okay, well, we don't think this hurricane's going to hit us. So we're just going to put you like 10 miles away from the coast. When it passes by, we'll go back to doing search and rescue training. Be good to go, right? Let this be a lesson learned. Listen to the local. All right. Listen to the guy that may sound crazy, but there's some truth to him. That's the person that I listen to, because he's just like, how should I say this in non-military terms? This thing's about to take a crap, and you better make sure you're prepared because it's going to be right on us.
Wow.
And he's just like, get money out. For those of you who've never been in a hurricane, power goes out, right? So you make sure you get your cash pulled out. You make sure you get extra food, water, all that kind of stuff, contact information, and have Verizon. Verizon was the only phone service that worked during that time.
Verizon sponsoring this podcast now.
That was the only thing that worked for anybody. But
Wow.
that, and the reason why I bring that up is because obviously that hurricane did hit us, and we were in a building where we're on the second floor, and they brought us down. They're like, hey, ceiling's lifting up, get down, get down. We rushed down there, and it was like a war zone. Like everything blew up. And we come out there finally when we're able to, and then we started the humanitarian stuff, helping out the community and stuff like that. But that created a longer wait time for me and my wife to be together, because now we're on pause for about 6 months while we try to do this recovery. And like no power, no water, no nothing. Like worst case scenario, bro, and you're stuck in this for a while. And I mean, nothing compared to the communities that were out there, of course, because I'm from California, so my family was fine. But for those families out there, God bless them. They definitely came together. But yeah, I was away from my wife for over a year. My wife and my little girl, and while I was going through training, and my wife. I tell you, my wife's one of the strongest people I know. When you join the military, it's not just you; it's your whole family. Your whole family's joining the military.
Right.
Your whole family signs up for it. And when we finally did get back together, we met up in a different section of Florida in Jacksonville when I reached a different phase of my training. And we had our first apartment. My little daughter, little tiny thing, would wait for me when I come home in my flight suit. I had a flight suit at that time, and just going through and just trying to be the best father I can be. You try to balance it out, and though you're not sure how to do it, you just try to listen to what they say. You try to follow God at the same time. And while you're going through your stressors, while you're going through your hardships, even though I wish I would have learned this a lot sooner, don't bring that home. Just don't bring it home. You hang that up before you walk through that door, because your family has nothing to do with those hardships. Your family will help you through the hardships because they love you and they'll be right by your side. But it's not something for them to carry. That's for you to carry. And as long as you do that in regards to, carrying it yourself, you'll be okay. And when I say carry yourself, I don't mean like, okay, all by yourself. I mean, in the sense of like having a community, like Noble Father, talking to counselors, praying, going to the faith, that kind of stuff. Don't be that person that comes in because you had a bad day, you stressed out, and you yell at everybody. That's where I'm in context for that one.
Wow. Yeah, and that's a lot. And yeah, like even just the understanding that, for every boot on the ground, there's like 4 support people supplying that guy, supporting that guy to
Yeah.
be able to be as functional as he is on the field. Um, wow, that's amazing. I can't imagine what your wife went through and is still probably going through as you're still in. And I mean, I'm sure you have a lot to say.
Yeah, my wife is a champion. Military wives are not given enough credit, to be honest with you. They are phenomenal, some of the strongest people I've ever met. And you know, you can't even put into words for the ones where their husbands don't come back, their wives don't come back, their mom doesn't come back, their dad doesn't come back, because guess what, life still goes on. And in the back of your head, when we go on deployments, they have that in the back of their head until they come back. And that's a very heavy cross to carry, very heavy cross to carry, because there's no guarantees. And I've just been so blessed to serve with so many of my brothers that some of them, unfortunately, even though they're not here, just to be able to have called them my friends and my brothers and my sisters, is truly, truly, truly a blessing.
Wow. I always envisioned these podcasts to be kind of like a time capsule of sorts. And I know that you have 4 kids.
4 kids, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to hear the story of how you became a father from the first one to the fourth one. I mean, because I feel like the spread is it's pretty spread out, like the age group of your
Yeah.
kids. That first one must have been a doozy, because you going into the military, and your wife is learning what it means to be a military wife, and if the first child's always the most profound one, obviously. And I want to get that story, and hopefully one day your daughter can come back, or just listen to know the small little details that from dad's perspective of how that all unfolded.
Yeah, I mean, my Christina, she's 18 now. She turns 19 next month. And, I know she doesn't like it when I say this, but, I'm just like, unfortunately, darling, you're the guinea pig. You're the one we learn from. Because, the older ones are just like, well, you never did that for me, when they start seeing the younger siblings, or you weren't like that, or you were more strict with me, and it's
Right.
just like, I'm sorry. It's just we were learning. And my daughter, my oldest one, when she was born, my wife, she was 18 years old. I was 19 years old. And I was in the military at that time, and I was able to fly back, and I was able to see her born, thank goodness. And unfortunately, I had to get back to my base in Florida. She was in California, and my daughter had to go back into the hospital. She had jaundice, but she was okay. Jaundice is one of those conditions where you're lacking like vitamin D or whatnot. You have to go underneath the little light. And for me, that was hard. That was very hard because I had to go back. My daughter it wasn't anything life threatening, and having to say goodbye to my wife as my daughter's in this little thing, incubator thing, that was the first time I probably cried in front of my wife.
Wow.
And so when you get those moments in the military where you want to be there every second, every moment, and you're not able to, it really breaks your heart, but you both know what you signed up for.
Right.
And you push forward in that.
Mhm.
And the military is supportive. If it's something like drastic, something life threatening, they will send a Red Cross, and you will be able to support um, where you need to. But for something, jaundice is a minor thing in that case, and so I had to come back. And
Wow.
so, I wish I can say that things were sunshine and rainbow after that, but we ended up, no joke. You ready for this one? We had a first apartment, and then like 6 months later, the whole place burned down. Yeah, we lost everything. So check this out, Theo. All right, check this out. This is my first, I guess, big test from the Lord of forgiveness. So my mom, it was the day before 4th of July, I believe. And my mom and my brother came down. We're living in Jacksonville, Florida. Me and my wife and my little girl, trying to make a family for ourselves.
Mhm.
And we're on the second story of an apartment complex, and beautiful place. We loved it. Our first place, our first home together. And we all went to sleep. And all of a sudden, my mom gets up. I don't know how your guys' mom is, but no matter how old you get, my mom's always going to check up on me. So, but I always tell her, hey, make sure you knock on the door.
Oh boy.
And so she comes, she stands up, and then she starts yelling. It's the middle of the night. She's like, "There's a fire! There's a fire!" And I wake up, and I'm a bit of a trying to organize my thoughts here. And I have my little girl in her little bed next to me, and my wife on the left side here. And as I get up, and there's just smoke starting to fill. And so we gather ourselves, we get out of there. We're like, smoke alarms didn't go off. We're like, where's the fire? Is it our place? And as we left, we saw that it was the apartment behind us. And so my first thought is, okay, who's up? Bro, we were the first ones up. Nobody else was up.
Oh
And so
wow.
what people don't realize about fires, especially at nighttime, it's not so much the flames that kill you,
Right.
it's the smoke.
Smoke. Yeah.
And it starts on top and it comes down. So when you're asleep and you're on the lower level, by the time you get up, you're breathing it all in, you choke, you fall to the ground, and then the flames get you, right? And so my mom saved our life. And we started going at the doors, knocking, knocking, getting everybody out. Boom, 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 boom. And I went to the back of the apartments because I knew they had kids, and I'm just like, okay. And Theo, when I knocked on that door and I yelled and I finally was able to sort of kick it open a little bit, it looked like a gateway to hell. Like it just looked flames everywhere.
Wow.
And now you have to make a decision, like, okay, so I yell out, I'm just like, I know they have kids, and like if I would have heard one kid cry, I would have went in there. I don't care.
Right.
But I didn't hear anything. And so there's nothing I can do. So, for me, I'm like, okay, I don't know what happened to them, but I went to the other houses and like a comedy movie of some sort, we get this one old lady and she finally opens up a door, we get her out, we get her downstairs, she's like, my cats. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. No way. I was like, okay, her apartment's already filled with smoke. I'm just like, you know what, she's an old lady, she'll probably be depressed. I'm gonna go back in there and get that cat. So I go back in there for Fluffy. I grab Fluffy, throw Fluffy out. My other cat, you gotta be kidding me. There's another. Go back in there. Me and my brother go back in there this time, and then there's whatever Snowball, whatever. And I hate to say it, I wasn't playing around with Snowball, and as soon as he got to the door, I kind of pushed him out, and then we got our cats. but
Wow.
but at the end of the day, though, bro, we called 911, and then we found the family that lived behind us, and they were on lawn chairs. They were watching the place burn, and and so we looked at the report and we found out that we were the first ones to call 911. And the guy and his family didn't wake up anybody. We were the first one. We woke everybody up. We got everybody out of that place before it burned down. And he didn't. He didn't. He just sat there in the lawn chairs.
This was after you rescued, like not rescued everybody, but just like warned
Yeah,
them.
yeah. No, we went to the door. We got everybody out.
Like, how big was this apartment, if you don't mind me asking?
Let's see. So you got 2 stories. You got your forward. You got your aft. So about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So probably about like eight households worth of people. Um,
And this guy's
and
from this household as well?
yeah,
Like
he was the
he's
one right
from.
behind me. So it turned out that this guy actually is where it started from. And so from his story, he was just like, okay, well, I was grilling in the back and I fell asleep and the charcoal fell over, which by policy, you're not supposed to grill on a second story apartment complex, especially when your deck is wooden.
Right.
And he was just like, it caught fire and he left. He didn't call 911. He didn't want to wake up the neighbors. Well, turns out we people reported him shooting fireworks off of his balcony, and we think that's how it started. And we think it was fear that got him. And you want to know even the worst part about this, bro? He was at my command. He was in the military. He was part of my same squadron. So he wasn't the friendliest guy, to be honest. I tried to say hi to him, but he didn't seem like the nicest person. And so God gave me my first real test in forgiveness because I was mad.
Wow.
Like he almost
Yeah.
killed my family,
Right.
you
And
know?
others too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
you said his family, so clearly this guy was a dad.
Yeah, he was a dad. He had like 3, 4 kids. And I was willing to risk my life to go in there and to save his kids if I hurt any of them. But
Wow.
he didn't have the courtesy to come over and knock on my door and say, "Hey, get out before you burn." And so for me, going through that, I really had to seek God. And God showed me it was just like, you have to forgive. And just like look at the whole scenario. Just look at everything. You made it out. You helped a lot of people. You grew. So I forgave. And he got sued by the apartment complex like for $500,000.
Oh,
So
yeah. That's
yeah.
not even
So
enough. I mean, that's lifelong trauma probably for some people. And
yeah, it was. And for my wife, for me at that time, I wasn't the person I was today. For me, it was always push forward. We're gonna move forward. My wife wanted to mourn, and for me, I was just like, we got to keep going.
wow. How
So
how old were you in this? I mean, it sounds like if you're in training, I'm assuming you're probably like 19, maybe
yeah,
21 or whatever.
yeah, no, about 19, about to turn 20, I believe. Yeah, I think I turned 20 that
Wow.
year. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think of, there is a part of me that's like, wow, that guy's a total D bag. But at the same time, I'm like, I think to myself, I was like, man, like, what kind of upbringing did this guy have, to end up being this way, you know?
yeah, and I mean, it goes down to fear. We all have this image of ourselves doing things in certain situations a certain way. Some people think of Hollywood as, okay, that's the way it's going to be, but you really don't know how you're going to act. You don't know how you're going to perform until the time does happen. But being able to carve your character now and implement certain standards in your life in the small things will eventually lead you to do them in the big things. But if you're not able to do them in the small things, don't think you're going to be able to do them in the big things, because the odds are against you. And I think fear is what really gripped him. I think the fear of getting in trouble is what really got him.
Yeah, that could be something historical too, and it's so interesting because even the smallest things like, we have our member Dan in our group, right? He was talking about his son, and just like took this little tiny thing from school, and the first thing I think about whenever I think of that, it's like how many parents out there, and actually he also recognized this, was like how many parents would just let something like that slide and not dig deeper and ask him, did you have permission to bring that back? And if you don't lead that way in the little things, this over time will change, and suddenly you have this klepto on your hands who's shoplifting, who's stealing, and didn't know from the very beginning that doing this little small little action, it's wrong. It's wrong. And as a parent, you need to say something about it. Can you imagine if a parent didn't say anything about it and then just allowed this kid to keep perpetuating this over and over again? And then one day you look back and like, well, how was this person able to do something like this? And so whenever I think of that guy, it's like, maybe he just maybe didn't have that foundation, didn't have a noble father to guide this person, to show him the example of fatherhood.
Yeah, and even though odds are against you, statistics are against you, it, you can't overcome all those things. It all comes down, for me, it all comes down to one thing. Why? What is your why? There was a quote I heard that said the two greatest moments in a person's life, the day they were born and the day they find out why. And when you find out why, it doesn't mean that's it and said and done. It's just, you can have multiple whys for different reasons and different chapters and different seasons, but you have to let that why be something that's bigger than your obstacles that are in front of you. And if you're able to do that, for me, when I was growing up, is making sure my brother didn't end up in the gangs and the drugs and the alcohol. When I joined the military, is making sure that I was willing to sacrifice my life to save someone else. But in order to do that, I had to be able to learn and train and be able to endure to be the person I need to be, that was equipped to go out there, and if I needed to, do what I got to do in saving a life. But yeah,
When did you find out your why?
my brother would be my first one, to be honest. That's where I found out I wanted to help people. Ultimately, the groundwork for everything was helping people. And going into that kind of environment, you see a lot of things. You see a lot of injustice. The first time I heard the cry for help, which would be just the one of many as I started getting older, is a guy being mugged, and he's screaming for help. He was selling. You get a lot of people that go around the neighborhood that sell stuff, and he had a bunch of like blankets or whatever. And this guy came out to him and started robbing him, and he's like, "Help, help, help!" And in the neighborhood, people just watch. It's none of your business. Don't get caught up in that.
Right.
And that always echoed with me. And then of course that would lead into later on when I would start hearing help, help, help in the military over the radio. Because of the rules of engagement, we're not able to do anything. And then later on, when my daughter get cancer, I would hear that help, 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 dad, and just keep echoing and echoing and echoing and echoing. And all of it's for a reason, though. There's a purpose behind it all. And for me, it's just like, are you gonna answer that call to help? It may not be able to do it in that one scenario, like for when I was hearing help over the radio, rules of engagement, you're not able to. It is what it is. All you can do is just bang your hand and just freaking grind your teeth. But when you find scenarios in which you're able to help in, and there's a lot of them out there, you may not be able to change what is going on in your life right now, but there is something out there that you can. And when you're able to take what you feel and apply it to that and do it in God, then you can change the world. And it may not be your world per se, but when you change someone else's world, you'd be surprised how it comes back.
Yeah, and I know that forms a major part of your story, and I do want to go there, is you walk us through that, the daughter having cancer, and you know walk us through that story. How did that unfold for you, and where were you at, and all that stuff?
Oh man. So I was on my last deployment in Iraq and came home. I was happy. I actually wanted to be a chaplain for the military. So as soon as I got home, I started going to Liberty University. And it was my last deployment. I had gone on like 4 deployments. And my last one, and I did a variety of things from counter piracy operations to just going around Africa, saying hello to people in Europe, that kind of stuff. And then Iraq was my last one.
Can I ask how long are deployments?
So they vary.
Oh, I see.
So in the Navy deployments, sometimes they can go from 6 months to 9 months,
Okay.
and sometimes even longer, depending on what's going on around the world. And so I've been on ships where doing search and rescue in the helicopter. And then for Iraq, I was on the ground. I was just a ground guy. That
And
one
how
went,
old were you? About roughly when
oh
when happened?
man. So that was back in, I left and came back in the beginning of 2011. So November of 2011. And so I'm 38
12
right
years
now.
ago.
So yeah. So
You're
about 12 years.
26.
So about 26 years old. And when I came back, I was done with deployment. So they have this rotation, shore rotation in the Navy. And so when you do a certain amount of years, then you can come on shore duty where you're not supposed to deploy for at least 3 years.
And
And
this is
so
just
that's,
to recoup, or what's the context
yeah,
there?
so it's pretty much just kind of giving you a bit of a rest.
I see.
And so you did your deployment, your sea time, now it's time to relax. And I had the best job, Theo. I was at a search and rescue school where I was an instructor. You rappel out of helicopters, you go to the pool, you get off early. It was awesome. It was all set up good. And you know we were living in Menifee, California at the time, so I did have to commute back and forth to San Diego, but we had planned on moving to San Diego. But as we were transitioning from Menifee to San Diego, my daughter ended up getting hit with a little bouncy ball from my son, just like, kids are kids. But my daughter kept complaining about her stomach, and, it just wasn't going away. So my wife was like, hey, you know what? Let me go get her seen by the doc just to make sure. And so
And
she did.
just so
Yeah, no,
I'm sorry, I'm gonna interrupt because I want to get this
no, no,
context out.
you're
Is
quite okay.
which daughter is this? Is this the
Oh, so
oldest
this
one?
is my oldest one. So she's
Okay.
7 years old. Yeah. And my son, he's still in diaper. He's a toddler. He's walking around and stuff. And so I only have two children at this time. And so as she goes to the appointment for my daughter, and I'm just cleaning up the house as we're moving down to San Diego, and I get a phone call. You get those moments in life you never forget. And my wife just tells me, she's like, hey, you got to come down here. They found something. And so I go down there, and we go through that whole process where they're like, we don't know what it is, but the doc ended up doing an ultrasound, and they found a big mass on her liver. And so we got referred to Rady's Children's Hospital, and that just started the whole journey of cancer. Unfortunately, you become part of a community you never wanted to be a part of, but it is one of those communities that is one of the strongest I've ever been a part of. You're dealing with life and death situations, and some kids make it, some kids don't. And going through chemo and surgeries for my daughter was very, very tough. And I don't wish that upon anybody. If I had enemies, I don't have enemies, but if I had enemies, I definitely would not wish that upon them.
Right.
It changes you. Everything stops. Everything stops. And for me, I was at a job where they were able to give me the time. I was no longer deploying, so they gave me all the time I needed. They checked up on me. So my brothers were very. I was very blessed to have that kind of community behind my back. And unfortunately, when my daughter found out she had cancer, for me, I was just like, I'm still fresh from Iraq. I haven't even really dealt with my stuff, and I ended up having to go to medical myself for a variety of reasons. And they eventually diagnosed me with PTSD, and I had to go through mental health. So I wasn't too happy about that because I'm like, my daughter's in the hospital going through chemo, and I'm being told I have to go to mental health. And then on top of that, I had a non-combat injury where it got too bad and I had to have surgery. And so I ended up having to be with a cane for a short period of time as well during this process. And I only knew one person that ever had cancer, bro. I didn't, I've always seen the St. Jude things and stuff like that, but I never knew anybody but one. and she was a very close cousin of mine. She was like pretty much like an aunt. And we try to call her up to try to get some, hey, how'd you guys make it through this and that? Unfortunately, we didn't get anything back. When we finally did get something back, we found out she got diagnosed with cancer again. And so it was very tough because she was a very close relative of mine. She helped raise me, and here I have my daughter who I'm raising, who has cancer and going through PTSD, and then my wife ended up having unexpected surgery, so she was bedridden, and all that happened within 6 months. All of that. And I'm just looking at my life at that point, and I'm like, I'm with a cane. My wife is in the bed. My daughter's, hair starting to fall out. I have another relative who is it's not looking good with her cancer, and I'm just like, wow, like, I did my time. I did my deployments. This was supposed to be the moment in which life is supposed to get better, and I'll never forget just praying to God and just asking him like, okay, like what, like, did I do something wrong? Did something happen where, it's my fault? But going through that, you when you start to continue to focus on God, he'll start to reveal himself to you even more so. And that's what he did. He helped me grow through it. He helped me get through that chapter, and I was able to get off the cane. My wife was able to get better and heal up. And after that 6 months, that was the summer of 2012. And going into the beginning of 2013, we're just like, okay, a new year, new beginning. Things are starting to look up again. Then we get that phone call that my relative didn't make it. She passed away. And then we get another phone call later on that my daughter, because of how aggressive the chemo treatment is, it was Dr. Rubenson. She had to be admitted to the hospital as she got through this. And they have a portacath that they put into their chest, and they have to stick a needle every time to administer the chemo. And this chemo treatment is so strong, so powerful that they have to wear hazmat suits as they administer it to the child.
Wow.
Yes, if it were to land on your skin, it would burn you in a few hours if it wasn't cleaned up. This is what they're giving our children with cancer. And so it had another name for the treatment for the chemo. It was called the devil's juice. And this is what they're giving to our children. The chemo treatment, long story short, in this avenue here, is not meant for children. It was meant for adults. Unfortunately, children are not considered a high priority when it comes to cancer. And so they're given very little funding. And when it comes to like some of these cancer organizations, like American Cancer Society, I'll just throw it out there, man. They use the children. Oh yeah, here are the children, your money's going to go to them. But it doesn't, they distribute it the way they see fit. Children that are going through cancer don't get enough. They don't. They have a lot more to lose. And sorry, kind of veered off there, but coming
No.
back, when we found out my relative died, then we got that phone call about this, that because of the chemo treatment being so powerful on my daughter, she can only take so much of it before it starts affecting her cardiac. And so she was going to have to stop. But because the cancer is such an aggressive cancer that if she were to stop taking the chemo, her tumor would be aggressive and come back and eventually take her. So they said the only option we had, because of where the cancer was located on the liver, would be a liver transplant. Now, the liver is a very unique organ. It's actually the only organ that can actually grow back. You can take a slice of it and it'll grow back.
Wow.
I can take a slice of your liver, if you matched up, of course, accordingly, to a child and put it into that child, and it would grow to that child's size.
You mean that chunk that you take out of me?
Yes, it would grow to
Wow.
that child's size, as long as you guys were a match, of course. That's how beautiful and remarkable our God is,
Wow.
right? And
Wow.
so that's what they were hoping. That's what they were hoping to do. But unfortunately, because of where it was located on one of the lobe areas, they couldn't do that. They said your daughter needs a brand new liver. And this, oh man, you want to talk about a test of faith? It just, they said the best chance for your daughter to survive is for her to get a child's liver. So how do you pray about that? In order for your
Wow.
child to live, somebody else's child has to die. How do
Yeah.
you pray about that, Theo? How do you go about presenting that to God? It just it leaves you in despair. And that's what happened to me. Hearing that from my relative that passed away, and then that happened, and we were put on the donor list, and they're saying, yeah, you're going to be called up, she's top priority. And then we find out somehow she was taken off the donors list, and now she's put back on, and 1 month turns to 2 months, and time's running out, and it's just like we're going to end up having to go to St. Jude, and is she going to be able to make it, and just all these different things. But then it hasn't even been a year yet, Theo. And I went into a dark place. I was ended up being part of a cancer support group, but I was a volunteer, and this was my problem. Is I started going out there as a volunteer, trying to help people, but I didn't open up to people until later. People had no idea my daughter had cancer. I just talked to them about my other relative, and when I finally did start opening up, that's when healing starts to really start. But when everything started happening, I didn't have a good ground in that, and I went to a dark place. I went to a dark place, and I struggled. And for me, I went to drinking and just doing a lot of terrible things. And, you can leave God, but God will never leave you. And eventually I got to a point, I was on multiple medications for PTSD, depression, all these different nerve pain, all these different types of things. And I finally reached a point where I was done with it. And my situation was still the same. My situation didn't change. God didn't take away the storm. I just opened up my heart to him completely and utterly, because that's what he wanted. He said, are you done trying to carry this yourself? And dude, I was just like, I'm done. I got nothing left. And that's when he started carrying me. That's when I just dumped all the pills. I stopped drinking. And I was just like, Lord, I'm yours. And then a short time later, we got the phone call. They found a liver, and my daughter got saved.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what was that like? I mean, I'd love to hear that, because it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So we got the phone call. I think it was like it was an NMA, and they did tell us it was a child's liver, so somebody's child died. They passed away. And so we went in there, prepped for surgery, and we called up our relatives. It was down at Rady Children's Hospital in San Diego. And
Actually,
you're not at a
do they search for this nationwide, or is it only a state
nation
thing?
nation nation
Oh,
nationwide.
nation.
It's nation.
Okay.
There's a registry that they
Oh,
go
wow.
through. Yeah. Um, and so you still have to go through the operation. The body still has to accept it. You still have to survive it, and all this
Mhm.
different types of things. Um, and so they actually called in a specialist who this is his cream of the crop type of thing. He knows how to do this kind of stuff, and he was the one that performed the operation, and he did a remarkable job. Not only did my daughter, do phenomenal in the surgery, but she healed so fast that the doctors were amazed. She walked into that hospital, and then, like, 3 or 4 days later, she walked out, and the doctors couldn't believe how fast not only was her body accepting the liver, but like how remarkable it was that she was able to talk and breathe so fast, taking off all the tubes and everything.
How old was she?
At this point, she was 8 years old. And so, you know, going through that, my waiting in the waiting room for the surgery to be complete is very, very stressful.
Yeah.
And for me, I just, my wife, was doing the best she could. And once we got the word that, it was done and it was good, it's just like sigh of relief, go forward with life and live again, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to do, Theo. That's what I wanted to do. Okay, my daughter's better. Thank you, Lord. Time to go forward. Um, but unfortunately, that wasn't the case, because we would find out later on that a good cousin of mine would end up having a miscarriage with her little one. And yeah, they would end up losing their child. And that was really gut wrenching for me. It really affected me really, really hard, because it's that not being able to help out, to do anything. And then I found out later on that summer there was another little girl who had survived cancer, and she ended up having a relapse in her cancer. So I went to God about that, and I was like, Lord, what can I do? What can I do to help out this child? And for me, I'm thinking like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna end up donating to her charity, not her charity, donating to like a GoFundMe, maybe send a card or something like that. That wasn't the case. God just like, I want you to carry a cross. So
What do you mean by that?
literally carry a cross, a wooden cross.
And that's
Yes,
the picture.
that's the picture. Yeah.
So I'll make that I think maybe make that the cover photo for this entire podcast, because I think there's something special about that photo, and you're gonna tell us about that right now.
Yeah. It's not, life is not like Hollywood. It's not one of those things where God's just leading you towards a direction. You're like, yes, Lord, I'm going to do it. No, who carries a cross? I mean, this day and age, right? I mean, but every time I confronted God about it, and I was going through scripture, I was talking to my brothers at church, I was talking to my wife. Everybody I told thought I was crazy. I thought it was crazy, but God was putting this in my heart. So I was like, okay, I don't even know anybody that can build a cross. Like, do you know anybody that can build a cross? I didn't at that time.
I don't feel I
And
could ask, but
yeah, like me, I didn't know. But guess what? Guess what God does? God reveals. I just so happen to have a buddy of mine that's invited me to his house because he was fixing his own house up. And he's like, hey, Ruben, come over here. Let me show you this cross I built in front of my house.
wow.
Yep. All right.
Are you
Well,
close with this buddy? I mean, did he just like random,
yeah,
or
he
like
was he was one of my search and rescue brothers.
I
Yeah,
see.
yeah, awesome guy. Just oh man, great guy.
Wow.
And so you guys like, okay, what else you got? So I'm like, okay. Now, one thing I left out is my daughter, my wife was pregnant at this time. So when my wife, all of us were going through a tough time when my daughter was going through cancer. And so for me, I was just like, you know what? If it is a situation where they need a liver of some sort, let's have a kid. And maybe, who knows how long this battle can be. Maybe as the kid gets older, it might be a match or something later on or something. And it was just one of those moments where people are just like, no, it's not a good time to have a kid. But I was just like, you know what? I feel like we need to have a child right now. And we did. And so my wife was pregnant, right? My wife is pregnant, and she's still like a month away from her due date. And so that was my complaint to God. Well, Lord, my wife's pregnant. And then I would say my daughter, even though she's pretty much recovered, I was like, my daughter is still, just a few months away from being healed. And I'm in the military, Lord. Like I got all this stuff. And but God's just like, no, it's just like, I'm letting you know what I want you to do. You go forward in it and I will clear a way, type of thing. And so I was like, all right. So I talked to my wife. My wife thought I was crazy, but she's like, all right, fine, whatever, do what you're gonna do. If this is God, we prayed about it. And then I told the family, because the little girl's name was Jade. That was she had a relapse in her leukemia. And so I told her mom, I was just like, hey, so I'm Ruben. They know who I am. And I'm just like, hey, so I feel called by God to carry a cross for your daughter. Crickets. And so she's like, oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, you can do that. Okay, so I got your blessing. Yeah. Roger that. All right.
Wow.
Lord, everybody thinks I'm crazy, but hey, you know what? And then I tell my work, and then I tell my buddy, my search and rescue buddy, and I was just like, hey, bro, this is gonna sound crazy. Can you build me a cross? And he laughs, of course. I'm used to it by now. I'm just like, okay. And I'm like, no, I'm serious. He's like, you're serious? I was like, I'm serious. He's like, Ruben, if I build you this cross, you better carry
Wow.
it. So I'm like, yes, I will. And so, as everything starts to come together, you start to realize that, hey, you know what? I don't know anybody that's ever carried a cross before. So I started doing research, and there's a guy out there that actually carried a cross, and he's carried a cross in every nation out there. He's actually
Wow.
a phenomenal soul. He's preached the gospel. And let me see if I can look him up.
Yeah, that'd be good to get his name.
Yeah, he was just, oh my gosh, this guy.
Wow.
Harry.
I think I've heard of
Yeah,
somebody like that.
he's been doing it for years, bro. He's been doing it for years, and this guy's just a phenomenal person,
Should try to way to
man.
get this
Harry.
podcast to him, because he's an inspiration. Wow.
carried a cross, and he did it. He dedicated himself to Christ in a level that I've never seen before.
Wow.
Here it is. His name is Author Owen Blissett. I think I'm saying that
Arthur.
right. Yeah,
Okay.
here I'll put in the chat right here.
Okay.
This guy,
That's an amazing last name too.
yeah, he went into nations that were anti-Christian. And he
Wow.
carried this cross. So if you ever look him up, there's a picture of him with his cross, and he's like it has a pyramid in the background there. But he ended up carrying the cross, and he had a wheel on it. And so for me, I was just like, okay, well, do I need a wheel? So once the cross
Right.
was made, I tried carrying it, and you'll find that if you try to carry a cross, the bottom of it will start to become
Yeah.
worn out as it's
That
being.
thought that was the thought that was in my
Mhm.
head. I was like, okay, so then what? Is it just like slowly grinded down and
Right. And so what happened is we ended up having to put a wheel at the end of it. This guy is the guy that we went off of and just kind of seeing, there's not too many people out there that can say they carried a cross, but this guy did it for years. So
wow.
a true hero for Christ.
What I'll do is
Arthur.
I'll edit and I'll stick a clip in there of
Yeah.
him doing it, and then it'll just continue on our conversation.
Yeah. But yeah, so I looked him up. I did some research on him. Found out I needed a wheel at the end of it, and then eventually it got to that point where okay, what date are we going to set? And so September is Cancer Awareness Month for children, Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, September. I'll go figure timing and all that kind of stuff, right?
What was this,
And
August or July for you?
this is August time frame, yeah.
Wow.
And so we go forward and we plan the dates and everything's set up, but I still have my doubts. I'm like, Lord, everybody thinks I'm crazy. I'm crazy, and mind you, I'm having a hard time. I have an injury, right? So I'm on and off with a cane. So I sometimes have issues walking, and I'm going to carry this cross. And so I'm like, Lord, I don't think I can carry this. Like I have a hard time. Sometimes I have to use a cane. Of course, as you read scripture, you're going to find out you're not the one carrying it. I am. You're not the one speaking. I am. You're not the one doing this. I am. Do you give credit to the pencil or do you give credit to the hand? You are my pencil. Be my pencil. Roger that.
Wow.
So I go into church, uh, and it's a Sunday before the event. And so I'm like, all right, Lord, I'm doing a Gideon here. I need a sign. I'm like, Lord, just give me
Yeah.
some kind of sign. All right. Just like, the whole do thing and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, actually give that context because I'm sure there's gonna be people who don't understand that story and you're a great person to illustrate it.
Yeah. So Gideon was during a time period when Israel was being pretty much being pushed down in society.
Right.
I think it was the Amorites. And they were just the lowest of the low of the tribe of Israel. And it was so bad because every time they would form crops in the fields, they would just get destroyed by their enemies. And so he was like mashing wheat in a hidden spot, away from anybody that can see. And so what happens? God sends an angel, tells Gideon, mighty man of valor. And then Gideon, who just, is trying to hide, is like, are you talking to me?
Yeah.
I'm that man, and so Gideon goes through this process where he does, start to converse, and he's just like, hey, well, if this is the case, if this is what you want me to do, you want me to lead a revolt to go against our enemies of Israel, can you end up making a do show on this? What was it called? Oh my gosh, it was like a
Yeah, it's like a
cloth of some sort.
cloth that it was like lamb skin or
Yeah, like lambskin,
wool. Yeah, wool.
like wool of some sort. And it's just like, okay, make the dew just form underneath it and not anywhere else. And then the next day he shows it, it's like that. Okay, he's just like, okay, make sure there's no dew underneath it this time, and then make sure it's everywhere else. And then he checks it and it's good to go. And so he's just like, all right,
Essentially he
well,
tested God. Yeah, for those that are
yeah,
listening, he was testing God to make sure that, the word that he got was true. Whatever you want to think about it, there's verses in the Bible that says don't test the Lord your God. Like it was just a crazy thing for Gideon to do that, and God actually showed him everything he asked for. Yeah.
yeah. And Gideon was a man who was not looking at himself as a man of valor or a soldier that was going to go out there and serve God.
Right.
But that's what God does. He takes people that are ordinary and he makes them extraordinary when they're
Mhm.
able to rely on him.
Right. The saying
And
is like he doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called.
bam, there. And so I ended up going into church, and it's the Rock Church down in San Diego. Uh, Pastor Miles
A
McPherson,
rock church? What was
the
it?
Rock Church.
Oh, the rock church.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so the Rock Church, by Pastor Miles McPherson, awesome guy, great
Right.
story. And so they have a big giant auditorium. It's one of those big churches. And so as I go in and I sit down, it's always dark, and then they play the music and you praise and worship, and then it opens up and it's just like a regular auditorium. And so I'm like, Lord, before the lights come on, I'm like, Lord, I need a sign of some sort. And so as the lights come on, I kid you not, Theo, there was crosses, wooden crosses like the one my buddy built all around the sanctuary. This is a place that does not have crosses, okay? It's just a big giant auditorium, but there was wooden crosses. Then it just so happened to be on that service that they wanted you to put on the cross. And so I'm like, if God can put a sticky note all over your fridge saying, this is what I want you to do, that's what he did to me. He was just like, hey,
Wow.
this is what I want you to do. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna go forward with this. Day came, got the cross, and said goodbye to my wife, who was pregnant, and my family, and started off in North Park, San Diego. That's where I was living at the time, and started walking. The destination was Loma Linda, San Bernardino, from
Okay.
San Diego.
All right. You said North Point is where you started.
North Park.
North Park. Okay.
Yeah, so North
And then
Park.
where was the end part?
So North
San
Park, San Diego
Bernardino.
to San Bernardino,
Oh, San Bernardino. Yeah, I've been there.
Loma Loma Linda.
Yeah, no, Loma Linda has the that very famous university, right?
Yeah, they have a university that's
Yeah,
pretty
the
good up
medical
there.
program there. Yeah, I'm
So
familiar with it.
so driving, so driving, it's about an hour and 52 minutes. It's about 104 miles.
Oh my goodness. Well, you
Yeah.
can click the walking thing too to see how far it is if you walk.
Yeah. Yeah. If you end up walking it, yeah, I can tell you how long it'll take you.
Okay, okay. Well, with the cross is definitely different. Is there a button you can press that shows the person walking with a cross?
Yeah, it took well, let me see if I remember this correct. I think it took about 11 days. It was about 115 miles. And oh my gosh, Theo, when I first started embarking on this journey, and I ended up going that first mile, and I was done. Like my side was hurting. I was just like I was tired. And I'm like, all right, Lord, I can't carry this no more. But when you listen to God, when you go through with what he tells you to, that's when he starts to carry you. And that's exactly what he did. I went 1 mile, he carried me the rest of the miles, 114 miles after that. And the journey that took me on, the people that I encountered, the stories that I heard, the I don't know what to say. It's like a Forrest Gump moment where you go through and people ask you, what are you doing this for? And so, for context for this, we were spreading the gospel, trying to get prayers for this little girl that was going through leukemia, and she needed a bone marrow transplant. And so, we had these little pamphlets that were passing out where people can register on the bone marrow registration. You can also donate blood because children that are going through cancer need blood transfusions.
Right.
And then she had a donation page. So, there was a donation page if you want to donate. And so that's what we did. And I had an awesome support team, my family and friends, and started going through. And if you ever try to walk this path of going through rough terrains and mountains and all this kind of stuff, you run into a variety of people. Some people will curse you. Some
Yeah.
people will greet you. Some people will come up. I've had a few veterans come up to me crying and just like, they wanted to put it on the cross. But sometimes you need just one Christian, one brother or sister in Christ to present them the cross. And
Mhm.
so as they came, I would tell them, here's a marker, write whatever you want on the cross, write a name. We had our cause. This is what we're doing, but whatever it is that you want to put on this cross, write it down. For one veteran, he wrote down his buddies who died. Another family, they had lost a relative, and I was passing a cemetery, and they saw me with the cross, and it gave them comfort because it was for them, it was a sign that their father was in a good place, and they wrote his name on the cross. I had another family where brother took over because his brother ended up passing away, so he took his kids in, and we prayed. We all prayed together, and they wrote down their brother's name on the cross. Children who had passed from cancer put on the cross. People of just variety of background just coming to the cross, praying,
Wow.
and just letting the world know they're not alone. There's a lot of hurting people out there, and when you present the cross, and this in this sense is literal, you'd be surprised how many of them will come to it, how many of them need it. I even had a guy that was on his way to go put himself in front of a train track. He was done with
Wow.
life, and he rolled up to me and he's just like, "Can I carry the cross?" And I was like, "What's going on?" He's just like, "Well, I'll be honest with you, like right now." And he's got tears. And he's just like, "I just want to go in front of a train track right now. I'm on my way." I was like, "Let's talk. Let's pray." And we did. And he didn't go in that train track. And it's one of those situations where you don't realize what people are going through or how much of an impact you can have until you put yourself out there the way God wants you to. So many people we impacted because we did something, we allow God to do something extraordinary through us. And we probably will never know the full magnitude of that journey on how many people it impacted. And I made a lot of good friends, a lot of good friends. And I even there was a father, he lost his son in a car accident. And his name is Larry. He would come with me on a few other crosswalks that I would do as the years go on. And he carried a very heavy cross of the loss of his son. And he came back and joined me and he asked me, "Hey, can I carry it?" And for the most part, I was carrying it. But I felt called by God to let him have it that time.
Mm.
And he's an older gentleman. He's not a young buck at all. He's an older guy.
Right.
And so I was like, all right, you know what? Here you go, my friend. And he took off with that thing. Whatever he had inside of his heart, he was letting it out to God. And it
Wow.
was so beautiful because we were going up a hill, bro. We are going up a hill. This is an escondido.
Okay.
And the sun is just getting ready to set. And he's already in the distance in front of me. And I can just see him just giving it to God, just giving it to God. So, and there's so much more to carry their cross, so many stories, so many different things that God worked through us because we did it for 3 years. We did it for 3 years. We did it every September. And, I was just so blessed to be a part of that journey where you don't realize how much God can do through you because you're so focused on yourself and what your limitations are. But when you're able to humble yourself to God and His Spirit, He can make the world turn in ways that you can't even imagine. And that's all I got to say about that.
And that idea has to originate from God, because if we try to do it out of our own desire, you would have been done that first mile.
Yeah, I would have been done. And when I finally made it for that first carry their cross,
Yeah.
there was I actually had an escort. They had called the police, and the police escorted me to the hospital. And there was this biker club, the Black Sheeps Christian biker club, that escorted me in. I didn't expect this, but there was a big crowd. There was a
Wow.
big crowd. I can send there's a link. I think I don't know if it's still there. Let me see. Sam Bernardino, Ruben, and Loya. Yeah, I made the newspaper and articles and stuff like that.
I mean, yeah, that's
Uh,
not the intent, but still, like, to
yeah, no, this,
get
yeah,
that, like, to get that, like, how can anybody do that and not have that happen?
yeah. So there's
Regardless
a
of what
link.
you believe.
There's a link right there.
Wow. And
Um,
I'll throw that into
yeah,
the thing as well. Wow, that is.
but
And actually,
it's
I wanted to get more context. Actually, is as because I'm picturing it. Obviously, you have a better picture than I do because you actually walked it. Is like, we're not talking like reality TV. Like, and when you say 11 days, it took you 11 days. I'm picturing you day and night walking the full 11.
yeah, it was pretty much, you wake up, you go back to the spot that you ended, and then you carry it
Oh,
on.
I see.
So
Okay.
it wasn't like you're going through the night. We did we did go into like sometimes late in the nighttime.
I see.
but it wasn't like all the way through. There was only one crosswalk, and that was the third crosswalk, the last crosswalk I did. And that's the cross
Okay.
that you see in the image. And that one, I had one event where I felt God called by God to do it for 24 hours.
Wow.
And that was rough. And just 24 hours carrying that cross forward. But no, yeah, still,
Safety.
rest,
Yeah.
go back, safety, all that kind of stuff.
Right. There's no
And
possible way to do 11 days straight like that,
no, no,
eating like
no.
Nutri-Grain bars or whatever protein bars.
There was definitely a lot of Nutri-Grain bars.
Oh, I bet. Wow.
Definitely a lot of Nutri-Grain bars.
Wow.
Um,
I wanted to ask something else. So is that cross you use the same cross every single all 3 years or?
So after ended up, we made it to the hospital. Jade was being treated there. She came out, huge celebration.
Oh, so
And
how did that happen? Like, was there somebody that you guys put down on that registry and they found bone marrow that could be used or?
so the way it goes is when you end up going on the registry, it's all like between the organizations, but the people that need it and the people that give it don't meet in the beginning. They can later on if it's coordinated accordingly.
I see.
But we were just trying to get people on the registry so they can see if they're a match or not.
Right.
And so when we finally made it there, she was still going through her treatment and stuff like that. And, it was a celebration. And I didn't intend on it to be a celebration. I just wanted to do something that God called me to do.
Yeah.
And it was, I got the exact dates here, September 24th to October 6th. And I think I did 130 miles for this one. And we raised about $1,800 on their webpage.
Wow.
So, um, yeah, I'm
And that
reading
was
the
the journey,
article.
24th to the 6th, you said. Or 26th? Did you say October?
That was the 24th, September 24th to October 6th.
October 6th. Wow.
Yeah. And so, I ended up carrying a little stuffed animal. I don't know, it's up to you if you want to include this or not. There's a comical moment, right? So I get there, there's a big crowd, everybody's cheering. And then we're waiting for Jay to come down. She has
Right.
to wear a mask because she's going through chemo and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then, here comes this girl in a wheelchair. And I get down on my knees and I start breaking down. And I'm just like, I had this little toy I carried for her, and
Yeah.
here you go. And then the nurse tells me, "Oh, this is not Jay. This is just a patient that wanted to see you." Because they have their mask on and they have like hoodies, so
Yeah,
it's hard
yeah,
to tell,
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I'm just like, you know what? It's okay. Hey, this is yours. You keep this. God doesn't make mistakes, right?
Right.
And so Jade finally comes out and then, greet her, and then go up there. They give me one of her shirts. They thank me. And, it's a lot harder connecting the dots looking forward. It's a lot easier connecting the dots looking back. Nobody thought it was going to turn into this kind of event. I didn't know it was going to turn into this kind of event,
Yeah.
but it did. God knew.
Wow.
And so after that, I gave him the cross. I was like, here's a cross. This is, has all signatures and writings from people's hearts pouring out. Here you go. It's yours. And so they kept it. And so I was just like, okay, eventually we found out she ended up getting a bone marrow transplant and she's alive to this day. So she's an
Wow.
adult now and she's doing better. So she's flourishing in life. And so September is done. I go back to my regular life and I'm getting hit up by all these people, news, medias, all this kind of stuff. I am not that type of person. I'd even want to let people know who I was, to be honest with you. I just wanted them to know who God was.
Mm.
But my wife she used to do marketing, and she's just like, people want to know who you are so they can connect with you. And I'm just like, I don't want people to connect with me. I came back from Iraq. I was a very enclosed person,
Right.
And but my wife's just like, if you want your cause to be successful, you have to let them know who you are. And then, I was a very prideful person at the time. So I was like, okay, fine. They can know who I am. I'm Ruben. Hello.
Right. See ya. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, but it's true. They got to know who you are. And so as soon as the event was over, they wanted me to give speeches and all this stuff, but I cut it out. I was like, no, I did my event. God wanted me to do this, and I'm done. And I just shut it all off. And the momentum that was built up on that, I truly believe I was supposed to carry that. I should have carried that because there was so much stuff we could have done with that
Yeah.
if I had just continue to trust in God. Because after that, I still followed God, but I was like, okay, that's behind me, moving forward. All right.
Hmm.
And but that wasn't it. That wasn't done. So eventually September was coming around again, and I ended up feeling guided by God to do another crosswalk, and did it for another 2 years. And then
Wow.
after that, that was it. But when it came to marketing, when it comes to marketing, momentum is everything. Once you get that momentum going, you have to sustain it if you truly want your cause to be successful. And for me, I never did. I didn't care about it. I got the momentum. My objective was complete as far as that cause, that situation, and then I just shut it down.
Hmm.
And now I look back on it, I'm just like, I should have kept it going
Hmm.
because I could have helped so much more, so many more people. But at the same token, God has his reasons for the seasons.
Right.
And I went from carrying the cross. This is our organization right here, carry
I
their
was gonna
cross.
say that shirt is perfect for what you're looking to
Yeah,
do. Actually, can you stand up and maybe show me the full
yeah.
extent of this shirt, just so everybody sees what they're looking at? Carry their cross, childhood cancer awareness. Wow. Yeah, I
And
was gonna say that's such a fitting shirt.
I don't know if you can see this here.
Will you help me carry the cross? Wow. And there's a picture of a cross and a ribbon. I guess it's a cancer ribbon around the cross. I was just detailing what it was, trying to give my what is it, closed captions of what I saw there on your shirt.
Oh, sorry.
Wow. No, it's okay.
but 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 yeah, so this was a shirt designed by a family friend of ours, and they gave us the shirt for free. And so when
Wow.
people would donate and stuff like that, we passed out shirts to them and stuff like that. And um, this is Carry Their Cross. We have a Facebook page, and just different types of things we had done during that period of time. And then I went into to Spider-Man.
Right. Yeah.
So, but that,
I wanna
but
I wanna cross that bridge in a little bit here.
yeah,
Just let me take these notes here because this is important. I mean, we're in September as well.
yeah,
This is interesting that we're having this conversation now. And I mean, I literally had the idea only like a few days ago that we were gonna jump on a conversation. Um, yeah, there's some stuff I wanted to ask about that whole ordeal before you even go into the Spider-Man stuff. Um, so for your daughter, do you know whose liver it was?
yeah, yeah. So that one's, oh man. So when it comes to receiving a transplant, there is a point in which one person can connect with the other, but the organization is the middle person. So they because of HIPAA, you're not going to be given their information. And so we got a card from the organization saying like, hey, here's a card from the mother. She would like to connect, of the daughter that passed away that donated the liver. And when we got it, it's very emotional. Very emotional time for us. And it was like a year, I think, like a year later. And so my wife's just like, we prayed about it, and we decided to go ahead and meet. We decided to meet. And oh my gosh, like they live, we were in Menifee at that time. Or no, we were in San Diego. And so we ended up going up to where they lived. There was about 2.5 hours up north. And so they were in the California area. And when we showed up, it was I think it was the anniversary. It had been 1 year, and I think it was the anniversary of her passing. She had passed away on May 31st. Um or May 30th. Let me see there. Let me make sure on this one. I might be able to bring up, I'll send you a link as well if you want to take a look. Her name is Suni. And
How do you spell that?
I'll get it for you right now. Let's see here.
Wow. I'm sure glad we circled back to that question. For whatever reason, I felt like that was
Yeah, that one's is actually a really important one. Um, that's the part that really breaks my heart, man.
yeah.
That's the one that I can say that's a heavy cross to carry.
No, absolutely.
Just
And,
give me
and I
one
and
more.
I've gone through the when I was in school there was a particular class we talked about ethics and morals and the conversation of like, somebody who's going to pass, their death is imminent, and they have all these healthy organs. What do you do in that situation of, an ethical dilemma, right? Of what do you do with that? And there's a time situation, and do you end this person's life early, take the harvest the organs and give it to these people who are going to survive with it or going to live on with it? And those aren't easy. Those aren't easy questions.
No, they're really not. And that's the part I think nobody ever wants to be in those situations. You can't even imagine those situations, but when they do, it changes your whole life.
Absolutely.
Changes your whole life. And how are you doing? Are you good on time, by the way? I don't want
I
to.
am great on time.
Okay.
I've being able to make my own time is, I dedicate as much as I need to doing it. My wife always asks me, she's like, do you have anything to do on this day? And my answer is always, I always have something to do. Like I have a revolving list of things, and it just keeps getting added to it. And and it comes down to, yeah, as an entrepreneur, you just have to prioritize and make the decision of what is taking the priority. So um man, this conversation has been amazing. I'm trying to think back to the entire thing, and there's been so much that's been shared, and you've walked so much, and the cross that you've carried is a heavy one. And
Yeah, it's
wow.
it's crazy. Sometimes when I talk to people about these things, they don't some of them don't believe it. I don't believe it sometimes,
Right.
because you don't expect to go through the pains that you go through.
Yeah.
But when you go through these pains, you look for comfort, like in the sense of like people being there for you and being at home and doing, trying to marinate on it.
Mm-hmm.
But when God calls you and he's just like, hey, I didn't tell you to stop. I didn't say no, just don't go forward anymore. Like, I need you to go forward. I need you to keep moving. I need you to keep doing what's needed. I mean, and you look at Jesus, right? So after he was born, it was a glorious time. Awesome. The savior. But what did he guide, his parents to do? Go to Egypt. He had them move, keep moving. And that's the same thing we have to keep doing in life and our faith.
Right.
Just got to keep moving.
It's a military thing too, isn't it? When I tell you to jump, you say how high. Don't tell me.
Yeah.
Right. Don't, like, and I tell you to do push-ups, you keep going until I tell you to stop, right? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. All right. Then I want to.
No, I get that. It's kids, and you, hey, like, man, like, this is not a priority. Like, you're a family man. You got to take care of your kids, and they will come up, and they'll need attention from dad. And if ever that happens, it doesn't matter. I want that included in the podcast, if anything. So
No, I got you, man. Yeah. Family life. But yeah, her name is Suni, Sunee. And
oh, Sunee. You said Sunni.
yeah, that was just I was
Sunee. Okay.
yeah, Sunee. That's my fault. And it was May 30th. May 30th when she passed away, and then that night, actually on May 31st is when we got the phone call. And when we got the phone call, we had been waiting for it for months. And it was finally happening. And we went through our process, but you know how that story went. As I talked about, she did well. And then we were contacted and we coordinated for the following year. It was supposed to be like on our anniversary. And so, we met with the family, and it was incredible but heartbreaking, because we wanted to make sure to let them know, like, hey, your daughter saved our life, our daughter's life. And so she told us her part of the story. She hugged my daughter. The mom was really the one that was embracing us. She was like, everyone else was kind of so and so. Because like
Yeah.
how do you deal with a situation like that where your family got the miracle, my family didn't? God chose your daughter, not my daughter. And that was actually brought up with one of the
Wow.
family members. They're just like, they asked us, some of them were asking us, like, what made you guys come? And I guess they didn't know that the mom had contacted us. We're like, well, the Bible tells us, celebrate with others and also mourn with others. and we got our miracle, and then we just want to be here with you guys. We are contacted by the mom, and so the the heartbreaking response from one of the family members is just like, you got your miracles, but where's ours? And that was just like, it was very, you know what I mean? It was.
Yeah.
I wish the mom had told them. Like they knew we were coming, but I don't think they realized that the mom had contacted us to come, if
Right.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and
Or in that moment, I
so
would have spoken up and said, "No, I invited these people. Like, please don't treat them like they're here to rub it in our face."
yeah, yeah, and they didn't. They were still respectful, still nice, but you can see it was a very
Yeah.
trying time for them. It had
Right.
been like a year,
Hmm.
so they were coping with their feelings and stuff like that. And me and my wife, my family, we had prayed. We had prayed. We were going in there.
You're expecting it. Yeah.
We were expecting, like, hey, this is the type of stuff that can happen.
Yeah.
And so as she shows us pictures of her, and we look down, and Theo, my gosh, this little girl looked like my daughter. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it's I'll send you a picture later on,
Yeah. Please do.
but bro, I was so shocked. And then me and my wife realized why she was crying so much. And when she hugged my daughter, and I mean, it was emotional to begin with, but even more so. And then she told us her side of the story. She told us what happened that night. She told us what happened with her daughter, and Suni was just her average little girl, and something happened where she had like a brain aneurysm, and she went down. They don't know what happened. It's just, before you know it, they were doing their day-to-day thing. That happened. She was in the hospital. Doctors were like, hey, your daughter's brain dead. There's nothing we can do, but you can donate, you know, you can help save other lives. Now, this was a traditional Mexican family. And when it comes to a traditional Mexican family, the man is the man of the house. And she told us that when the doctors came to her and her husband and told them, and then the doctors walked out, gave him some time, she told us that the husband was like, no, we're not going to do this. This is my little girl. We're not going to donate any of her organs. I don't blame them one bit. I mean, she's on a ventilator. They're getting ready to pull the plug on their little girl. It's just like, last thing you want to think about is her being cut up and put into other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So she went to go tell the docs. So she told us as she was walking to go tell the docs, she felt something. She felt like God. And so when she went to the docs, she told them, like, we're going to do it. Now, to go against your husband like that in
Yeah.
a Mexican family, that's a big deal, especially in
Right.
a trying time like that. And so, she ended up going back and talking to her husband, and the husband knew already. Like, I guess I don't know if he felt it as well, but he knew it.
Right.
And this was the way. And so they pulled the plug on her on May 30th. Yeah. So she passed away. And on May 31st, my daughter was given a second chance. So,
Sorry.
no, you're good, man. I got my feels too, brother. You're not alone. You're not alone, man. It's
I couldn't. I can't imagine. I can't imagine what that's like. And I've only seen my grandmother and my grandfather pass away, um, like take their last breaths. Not
yeah.
pulling the plug or anything. Um, and Wow.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest crosses to carry, my friend. That's one of those ones where I You want to do the family justice. You want to make sure that there was a bigger purpose behind it all. I think for me, no matter what I do, no matter how many charity events or how many miles I go, how many crosses I carry, you know, you can't bring back the little girl. You want to do more. You want to make sure that you're doing right by them. But for me, at this point in my life, I haven't done enough. And that used to be my thing whenever I do these events. It's not enough. It's not enough. So much more we can do. Very tough cross carry.
Yeah.
But God help me to remember that ultimately I'm not the one carrying it. He's carrying it. I'm just a pencil. I'm just a pencil. He's the hand. Even though we're all called to carry our crosses, he's ultimately carrying us. And praying on that for years. And when it finally did sink in, I was finally able to find a peace about it. Not the peace to stop going forward and doing what I'm doing, but a peace to know that God has his journey set for a reason. That the pain will not go to waste. Just keep following him. Keep letting his spirit guide your steps. And he will show you. He will show you the way. So, but yeah, that's probably that's the hardest one.
Yeah.
One of the hardest ones in this whole journey is the ones you can't save. The cries for help that you're not able to answer. And I used to get fixated on that. I used to get stuck on it. And it nearly drove me insane. Anybody that's ever dealt with people that are in circumstances where a relative is dying, or especially a child, you feel helpless. You want to do as much as you can, and then if it happens and the child passes away, it's very tough. And then you go to the next case and the next cause, and it just starts to pile up. But it's very important that you give it to God. It's not ours to carry. It's for God's to carry. Still process it. Go through the tears. Go through the counseling sessions. Go to your brothers so they can help you through it. Noble Father, organizations like this, it's so imperative for men, because in the society, there's an image where For some reason, they depict us as somebody that needs to carry it all by ourselves and still smile and be okay. But no, it's not the case. We're human, just like everyone else. I think we just have a better way of hiding it. But deep down inside, we all have that cry for help as well. And if you ignore it too long, eventually you're not able to help anybody. So I think it's imperative for fathers to not carry these loads alone, to get involved in these groups with men. So you don't reach that point where you have nothing left for your family. And then you crash. And that's what happened to me. I crashed. I was doing all these charity events. I went back down a dark path because the God that I was serving, I changed it to the charities. My idol was charities at that point, trying to help the next child, trying to do another hospital visit as Spider-Man and all these different types of things that I nearly lost it all. I was fueled by pain and no longer by God. And, so many times in the Bible, you see that, so many times in the Bible, you see how people start off strong. And they were strong because they were in God. But they veered off and started doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And what does Paul tell us? I mean, Paul tells us, finish the race strong. There's a crown at the end of it. And it's not for glory. It's not to make yourself seem big. It's to bring glory to him and what he's done for us. And to share that with the world that needs it.
Yeah. And I did want to encourage you, in the moment as you were sharing, and I wanted to give you the complete space, but it is enough.
Yeah.
You are a pencil. There is no infinite pencil, right? God's hand is infinite. And so if we are faithful and we give ourselves wholeheartedly to God and his hand as the pencil, and God uses it, God uses us to draw this beautiful masterpiece, that is enough. And God's will is done. And it's interesting because as you were speaking, I thought of, I don't know if you've watched the Schindler's List.
Oh yeah, that was
That
one of my
scene,
inspirations.
that scene at the end where he's holding that pin and he's like, I could have saved 40 more people
Yeah.
with this pin. Like, what is this pin? He says 40 more people. And I'm speaking from my own thing here too, of like, yes, I work and I toil, and and God has called me to speak into the life of fathers through Noble Father. I know that I'm finite. I know that I have a capacity as well, is that I can't, it's never going to be enough. It's so easy for me to say that about my work, is that it's never going to be enough. And that I feel like I'm not making a dent. But every time I get to that thought, I go to God and I say, Lord, like, I hope your will is being done here. Like, please fulfill something. I pray that this little thing that I'm offering, all I can offer you is this heart, this broken heart, and my imperfection and my, everything that I am, that I pray that it's enough for your will to be done. And what's beautiful about this whole work is, the encouragement that I've given, and I want to give this encouragement to you, is that, yes, you took that cross and you were walking it for Jade, and you were carrying it for God because he asked you to carry it. All the byproducts, all the people who came and had their life touched by just that simple obedience and faithfulness that you gave in carrying that cross. These people are out in the world today. Who knows what they're doing, and the seeds that they're planting, and the people that they are touching through your action alone. And so, is it enough? Like, what is enough? And so when I think about even Noble Father, sometimes when I was in China, all I could do was post the podcast and show up on the Thursday calls. One of the things that really helped me was understanding that, in being able to allow a space for Ruben to share about himself through the week, it is enabling him to go back into the world, into his world, and to be more present in that. And a lot of that, even if it was just 10 guys that came out, that's 10 guys that are now more present in their walk. And that's not to brag about me, that's to brag about God, is that he orchestrated this whole thing for you to carry your cross. This is my cross, and that is enough. That is enough. um we can't weigh ourselves down with what could have been, what should have been. I think if we in the moment say that we've given our best, that is enough.
Amen, brother. Amen. Very well said.
That's there's a lot of, man, um yeah, I wanted to circle back to something else, and I don't know if that's a great place to go. I did want to hear about, your Spider-Man stuff, because that is something that, and I grew up wanting to be Batman. And so, to see another brother who is striving to be like a superhero, first maybe tell me, why Spider-Man? What was it about Spider-Man's story that made you feel like you resonated with him so well?
So, after my daughter got better and the whole carry their cross thing, I still suffered from PTSD. PTSD doesn't go away. And so I needed something else. I guess you can say I wanted to recreate the spark that I felt during that crosswalk. But because that crosswalk is very enduring and takes up a lot of time and a lot of supplies, obviously I can't do that year round. So I thought about the times I was in the hospital with my daughter and what would have been awesome to see while being in there. The hospital sucks to begin with. Nobody wants to be in there. The staffs are amazing for the most part. They try to make the best of a bad situation. And so I was like, you know what? A superhero. A superhero would be awesome to see, right? So I'm like, let me look at some superheroes. So I'm like, I'm too brown to be Superman. I started looking at these different types, Green Lantern, like maybe a Power Ranger. But then it dawned on me, bro. I was like, I have a hard time going to the hospital. I have PTSD from the hospital. As soon as I walk in there, I get flashbacks to my daughter being carried when she was, going through chemo. It's very, very hard. I'm like, I want to do this, and I prayed about it, but I'm like, I'm gonna end up crying in front of these kids.
Right.
So, I prayed about it to God, and it's just like, if I can cover my face. So I looked at superheroes that can cover their face, and Spider-Man came up. And the reason why I chose Spider-Man is to hide my tears.
Wow. It is a sign of strength, to show those emotions. It's definitely not I definitely don't think that, you know it's any show of strength to hide behind a mask. But I also resonate with that of like, for me, Batman was a big deal, and try to keep things in the dark and secrecy, and not go to talk about it. And um
Yeah, and so I got the costume, which anybody out there that gets costumes, they are very expensive if you want to get the authentic ones.
Yeah.
My wife wasn't too happy. But I wanted to get something that was gonna,
Yeah.
serve its purpose. I didn't want to get all the filled in muscle ones. I wanted to be authentic, as real as can be.
Right.
I wanted to do the kids justice because my own child was in that hospital. And so I got it. Being in the military, we went to Radies and we went to Naval Medical Center, San Diego. And so I tried to put myself in both of those. Radies was a little bit more strict. Um,
It's just a
but
different
Naval,
hospital. Radies is just another
yeah, so
hospital.
Radies is a children's hospital down in San Diego, and the Naval Medical Center, San Diego, is the Naval Hospital in San Diego. So one's a civilian, the other one's a military.
Mhm.
And so with the military hospitals, they only help out those that are in the military or used to be in the military. veterans. And so we bounce from back and forth to those for my daughter's treatment. And so the Armed Services YMCA, which is an awesome organization that helps out service members and their families with a variety of things from food to entertainment to just really awesome organization. And so I got in touch with the coordinator and I let her know what I wanted to do. And she's just like, okay, yeah, definitely. The kids would love that. And so I was like, okay, well, just let me know. And then I get a phone call sometime later where I think this is like 20, what man, 20, the end of 2013, I think, maybe the beginning of 2014. And she's just like, hey, we have a little girl. She's about 7 years old. I think it would be awesome if you came in your Spider-Man costume. She's doing a Make-A-Wish. So, she wanted to be a nurse. So they ended up doing this phenomenal thing where they made her a military nurse for the day, which is just so remarkable, right? And so they're just like, yeah, if you can come in and say hello, I think it would help her out. So I'm like, yeah, definitely, what day, what time, and all that stuff. And so it was just like, okay, yeah, I got you. So my heart is pounding. Like my first gig,
Your
right?
very
My
first,
first,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, my very first one. Don't mess it up.
Right.
And so I get the location of the building at the Naval Medical Center, and I find a place to change and I don my costume. And nothing could have prepared me for that moment, man. Dang. She was going through cancer and she looked just like my daughter
Oh
when
my
she was
goodness.
going through cancer.
The same age too, almost, right?
Yeah. And so as soon as I saw her, dude, I was crying. And I was like, thank you, Lord, for the mask.
Wow.
And I go in there and there's a bunch of military people and they're at the end of she took a tour as a nurse and they're at the end of it. And so I have kids. I love kids.
Yeah.
And so I just go into my kid mode. Hey, this Spider-Man, nice to meet you. What's your name? And she's frail. She's in a wheelchair. But and then she perked up. She smiled. And I just, I had a military patch, a search and rescue patch. I didn't know what to, my first gig, I was like, I'll give her a military patch. So I gave her the military patch and I told her how strong she was. I was like, you're one of the strongest heroes. It's so awesome to be here and just encouragement as much as I can. Now, because of HIPAA, you don't know exactly, what's going on or whatnot. And so I gave the parents my information. I was just like, hey, if you want to have me come by and visit, let me know. I'm here. I think it was 2014, yeah. And I was just like, I'm here. I'll come by and do a special visit if you want. And they were so happy. They're just like, yeah, she was really drained. It was a long day, and she saw you and she brightened up. So thank you so much for coming down. And it's just like, yeah, awesome. I never heard back from them. So I was just like, okay. And I started doing my hospital visits and I started getting other military people involved. I ended up buying costumes like crazy. My wife got really mad and Minion, Tigger, Minnie Mouse,
Yeah, yeah.
Power Ranger. Started taking these military guys and just going down there and just trying to bring smiles and happiness and joy and stuff like that. And then I went to Rady Children's Hospital and I got involved with another guy, Dr. Wu, aka Dr. Batman,
Mm-hmm.
who he heard about, me and him started collaborating together. He heard about me and we started to do hospital visits together. He had his own nonprofit organization and I started teaching him the ways like, hey, watch out for this, do this and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff because I've been doing it for some time. Amazing, beautiful soul, him and his wife, just truly remarkable. And he took what I had and just exploded.
Wow.
And for me, I did as many events as I could, but I'm only one person. I still have my military obligation and then my family. And then there was a little boy that was a friend of the family who had cancer, and his name was Aiden. And Aiden ended up having a relapse in his cancer. And when that happened, yeah, I let them know like, hey, I can do a hospital visit. Did a hospital visit, and then I prayed about it, and I felt prompted by God to do a charity event for him. I was going to try to attempt to run 300 miles dressed up as Spider-Man. Try to raise funds and prayers and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, hold on, give me 1 minute.
Yeah. Go
Hey.
for it.
um, so I told the parents, and the parents were like, "Yeah, definitely." And so I started doing. I did that event, and I started doing events at Spider-Man. I started running 5Ks, half marathons. I did that event. By the way, I didn't make the 300. I ended up getting hurt, but I did 180 miles, so I got somewhere.
You
So
did
even though,
100. You did 1 mile even.
uh, so and I did. There's a place called Cow's Mountain in San Diego. It's like um,
Cows Mountain.
yeah, Cow's Mountain. It's what the heck? Hold on, let me see here. It's like I think it's 1.5 miles up. Yeah,
Whoa.
Cow's Mountain. Cow's Mountain. Yeah. Cowles. And so it's 1.5 miles up, 1.5 miles down.
Wow.
And I had the bright idea. There was a little girl who had terminal cancer, and she came across my page, and I was just like, you know what, let me do something to help raise money for her. So I was just like, what can I do? I'm limited because I can't do the big events that I normally would like because I'm limited on my support. Um, so I ended up saying, you know what? Let me go do something where it's just going to be me. Me and my wife were kind of unfortunately going through our marriage issues. And this is when I started putting my charity as my idol, unfortunately. Um, and so she was just like, hey, I want nothing to do with it. You're on your own. So I'm like, okay, I need some place where I'm not going to have to go far. So I was like, you know what? Going up and down a mountain sounds good. I'll do that. So I ended up going to Cow's Mountain and ended up going up and down until I got to 43 miles to represent the 43 children that are diagnosing with cancer every day in America as
Wow.
Spider-Man. And yeah, let me see. Loya. I think there was a news article on this one. Yeah, so I'll send you the link to this. There's a link to that one there. Um, So yeah, so we raised funds and trying to get prayers, and that was a tough one because before the event was over, the little girl ended up passing away, and that was very hard. But we still continued on until we reached our point. And then Aiden ended up passing away during his event as well. And just you start encountering these situations where Jade lived, and you hope it'll be the same thing, but
Right. Right.
it's not always the case. God has His reasons for the seasons, and
Yeah.
that started to affect me mentally. I started relapsing my PTSD stuff. My marriage was kind of going south. And eventually came down to, me and my wife, we ended up going our separate ways. We're just like, hey, I can't be with somebody that's going to be doing this. And she had every right to, she had every right to. I wasn't respecting my family the way I should have. There's no point in trying to save the world if your own world is falling apart.
Yes.
And so it was a very big lesson for me to learn. And so for about 3 years, me and my wife were separated. But we still live. We got a bigger house. I lived in the bottom. But because of my daughter's medical conditions, because after cancer, you have so many side effects. Liver transplant, my daughter takes like 15 meds a day, and she will probably for the rest of her life. And so me and my wife, we still love each other. We just were going different directions, but we always put our children first, no matter what. And so we became the bigger person, just like, hey, our children need us. So we're going to do this until our oldest daughter can get better medically. And I was okay with it. And, I did my thing. She did her thing.
Hmm.
But then God If you see God, if you truly see God with all your heart, no matter your situation, he will bring you where you need to be. And that's exactly what happened to me and my wife. After about 3 years, God was just like, are you done playing this game? Are you done putting yourself first?
Mhm.
Because I'll tell you right now, you have a choice to make. Like you have to make the choice right now. He spoke to my wife, and we got it on we got it recording too. We have a dash cam in our vehicle, and it may people may not believe it, but she was talking, and she was saying things out loud that she could not have known at all, but somehow she did, because we were separated at this
Like
time,
about your situation?
about my situation and what I was going
Wow.
through.
Uh-huh.
And God revealed it to her, and it's all caught on camera. And my wife has never been a person. My wife has been always authentic, and that's why I loved her from the very beginning when she said,
Right.
"I don't think I can wait for you."
Right.
It
Right.
doesn't get
Right.
more authentic than that.
Yeah.
So she's never been the type to play games with me. So when she told me that, and then she said, "Hey, if you don't believe me, it's on the dash cam," and I believed her, but I was like, you know what? Let me check the dash cam just to make sure, you know.
Right.
And sure enough, and it comes down to this, Theo: are you following his scriptures? Every problem that you have in this world is in scriptures. If you truly look at it and search it with it's a living word of God. If you open up your spirit to it, it will reveal the truth to you. Are you fellowshipping the church? And I'm not talking about a building, I'm talking about the people, the body of Christ. Are you truly giving yourself into the body of Christ? And then your time with God. Are you having your moments with God? If you do those three things authentically with all your heart and soul, God will reveal himself to you in the path you need to go down. And that's what happened. And I dropped everything. I was just like, I had a path that, I could have been very successful in a different area. So I thought, with my charities, and I had partner and this and that was going on, that I was just like, this is it. This is my time to go help save the world. But God gave me a choice. You can't serve two masters. You will love one and you will hate the other. And when I got down to it, I let that go. And it wasn't like a sacrifice at all, not at all. Once I finally got back with God wholeheartedly, it was a breath of fresh air. It was like these blinds that were on me, and I finally was able to see clear again. And I had peace in my relationship with my wife that I hadn't had in so long. And Theo, like, I love my wife more than probably when I first met her. Like, I see her as just this magnificent gift of a blessing from God. And I've never had that feeling to this extent until I truly gave my whole being in my marriage to God. And it's so beautiful. And in our rings that we have when we first got married, it has forever in God, because that's the only way it's going to be forever. You rely on each other, you're human, you're going to let each other down. You rely on your job, you rely on this world, it's going to fail you if you make your foundation than what you have. But you put it on the word of God, which is everlasting, then you'll never fail, and you'll never fall in the ways that this world wants you to. But you just have to stay there. When I finally got grips on that, when I finally put my wants and desires of Ruben to the side and my pride, God brought me back. And I'm just so grateful, because Hevel, Hevel is my life, but a vapor. Who am I that the good Lord will come down and intervene and be like, hey, I still have a journey for you if you want it, even after I turn my back in so many ways. I am blessed, man. So blessed. I don't deserve it. But through the blood of Christ, I am renewed, I am saved, I'm forgiven. And forever is his love and mercy. I'm just blessed to have that in my life. He restored my family.
Wow. Wow. Man, as you're sharing that, and I'm blown away by this journey that you've gone on, and also for us to find each other here now. This wouldn't have happened. This wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for something God was doing in both of our lives. Um, I definitely think that the encouragement that you've given, um, I'm sure a lot of people may have missed that in their own relationship with their wives, and understanding the world of themselves, even, and even for myself. I'm not a perfect person. I always say this on my podcast. I'm not a perfect person. And even that conviction that you've given me about marriage and my walk with God, man, like there's so many things that I am taking away from this conversation, of needing to improve, that not enoughness of that. I definitely feel like God is the only thing that can fill those voids and those holes. And I definitely don't feel like I've done that enough in my relationship with God as well. And but I consider myself a work in progress. And I think I want to say thank you for that conviction, and thank you for living that example in your own life, because yeah, you can't share that with me if you don't actually live that yourself. And and yeah, that's just so beautiful. Man, to see the journey that God has taken you on. And so I know that right now you're currently dealing with some health stuff as well. um
Yeah.
how's that affecting you?
Yeah, it's been rough. Being in the military, I've been in for 19 years and done some amazing things, served with some amazing people. But it does wear and tear on your body. I've been exposed to certain things, from chemical plants to burn pits, and a botched SAR operation, um, where I got exposed to CHT, which is essentially the crap of the ship that deplores all its nastiness. I don't know. You want a funny story? There we go.
Let's
I'll
go.
give you a funny story here. So one of many. So doing search and rescue, sometimes we're on call, and that means that as soon as hey, man overboard, or this happens, whatever happens,
Right.
you have to go out there, and you might be the wet guy, and the wet guy is the person that ends up jumping out of the helicopter, and then you got your crew chief, who's the one that managed the hoist and then brings you back up. And so I'm asleep. It's me and another guy. My call sign's Golden Boy. His call sign's Bobcat. Aviation thing. And so I'm asleep, and he comes in. Bobcat comes in, and he's like, "Bro, we got a man overboard. We gotta go." So I jump out of bed, in my rack. I'm gonna jump out of my rack, and I'm not even half awake when I'm already kind of leaning out of the helicopter, looking for a body in the water, right? And then we come up on the body, and it's just okay, we spot it. So we go through our procedures, coming up. What do we do? I think we did a 10-10, which is going 10 knots, 10 feet above the water. And then, you deploy 1, 2, 3, and then I jumped out of the helicopter, right? And go over there. Hey, buddy, you okay? Grab the person. It was a mannequin, Theo.
That's
It
why
was
I
a
started
mannequin.
giggling, because I was like, where's the funny part? And I could assume it was
So I grab the mannequin. I do my procedures.
you still went through with
I give my signal, hey, hoist, lift me up, get up
right.
there. And the pilot's in the front. She's like, all right, what's going on? How's the patient doing? I don't think the patient's going to make it, sir. Take a look.
And he's like, see ya.
So he turns around. It's like a little tunnel thing in the helicopter. He turns around.
Yeah.
We are livid though, by the way. So
I bet.
just to kind of give you context here, whenever we go out there and we do a search and rescue, we give it everything we got. We are risking our lives to save this person, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
If we are doing a training scenario, there are certain things that have to be in place. There have to be a safety helicopter, a safety boat, and it has to be briefed out and everything like that, right? So there's a huge procedure, protocol,
Right.
SOP, standard
Yeah.
operating procedures, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so something happened in the chain of command that we later found out was the CO of the boat. CO decided to say, hey, let's find out how long it takes for the search and rescue team to recover a body. Let's throw it overboard.
Boy, here we go.
On top of that, somebody decided to disperse the CHT, which is pretty much the sewage and all the crap of the ship. So, guess what I was swimming in?
Oh. Wait, so it's separate? Like the CO didn't know that CHT was being released, or was it part of that?
No, the CO didn't know. Well, at least
Oh,
I hope he didn't know.
oh
But
my
they
goodness.
have certain procedures in which they release it. You have to be at like a certain distance from shore and all that kind of stuff, and then you release it, and it goes out.
Oh,
And so, and I knew the water tasted kind of funny. When I jumped in
Oh
there.
my
I
gosh.
jumped into the water in the Atlantic, the Pacific, the Mediterranean. I've been around the world and I've jumped in many waters, and something was wrong with that one. And so when I got back, I was ticked off. We were all
For
livid.
sure. Yeah.
And so I get back to the ship, we land, and as soon as I find out what happened, Bobcat starts laughing up a storm. He's like, "You swam in," and for better words, crap.
Oh my gosh.
So I went up to go take a shower. And on the ship, sometimes there's regulations on water. Nobody was going to mess with me. I was staying in that shower as long as I wanted to, try to get all this crap off of me. The CO comes down, he apologizes. Hey, I'm sorry, this and that. And it was just, not to get too political, but let's just say I had a fight to make sure I got that put in my medical record and the truth exposed, because people like to
Right.
hide certain things. But yeah. So the day I saved a mannequin, risked my life to save. We called it Oscar. Oscar is what we referred to as the mannequins. So the day I saved Oscar, and then dramatic jumping of the helicopter into
Oh
crap.
my goodness. Well, so that's just that the CHT stuff is not just it's not just waste and feces and pee or whatever. It's like it's other stuff too. Sounds like
Yeah,
there's more
it's a
chemicals.
variety. Yeah, it's a variety of crap from the ship. But for me, what that's that funny story for, I got exposed to that. But at the end of it, though, this stuff does affect you. It does affect your body. It does, and chemical plants, burn pits later on in Iraq, have some breathing issues and whatnot. And now somehow in my stomach, my cells are mutating, and I got diagnosed with like Barrett and a few other things. And so I have to change up my diet. I'm changing up my diet, and just I have to go in to get a little camera down my throat to get the cells checked.
Oh,
And it sucks. It really does suck, because you want to be at 100%, and
right.
sometimes you're not because of a variety of factors or whatever it might be. And sometimes you may not even know if it was those certain circumstances that contributed to it.
Right.
I registered with the burn pit, which anybody who's in the military, if you've been exposed to burn pits, chemical plants, make sure you register. There's a burn pit registration that military can register on, so they monitor you, and if there's any cancers that arise. You don't want to wait to for something to happen and something to show up
Mm-hmm.
before you register. Register now and just get in the system, because they'll monitor you
Right.
in the long run. But yeah, so I got that going on. And you know with me and my wife, when we got back together, officially, and going forward with life, and God is good. We're just so blessed. We got a good church family at a church near us called the Rock. It's a different type of rock. It's just the same name.
Right. Wow.
God,
Interesting.
God has a sense of humor, I think.
Yeah. How
um,
long has it been since you guys got back together?
let's see. Was it when was COVID? 2020? So
Yeah,
2021.
2019 started, yeah, end of it.
So 2021, November of 2021.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, November of 2021.
Also hasn't even been 2 years yet. It'll be
Yeah.
2 years coming up.
Yeah. So
Wow.
we've been so blessed, but we also know, there's a spiritual attack. Like,
Yeah.
God said he's going to restore our family. And for me, I thought it was just my immediate family, but I can see how it's extending to my bigger family. And
Mm-hmm.
it's all God, just different things that's happening. And but there's a spiritual warfare we're in, because last August, my little girl, my 9-year-old Evelyn, she ended up losing the ability to walk. And you kind of put you through the roller coaster of which went through with my daughter, my oldest daughter Christina, about cancer. So it's just like, oh no, what's going on here? You go through that whole scenario again. And they called it convergence disorder. It's like a neurological condition
Mm,
that is triggered by anxiety. And so my daughter ended up in a wheelchair, and I'm like, is this really happening? Like, is this uh is this going to be my new life?
right.
And but they told us it's one of those diagnoses where if they can't figure out what it is, they say it's this.
Right.
And so they said we can go to physical therapy. We went through physical therapy. And it's just trying to get her into a good mindset as well, where she feels like she's at peace and comfortable and good to go, safe.
Mm.
And so, started our journey with her being in the wheelchair. We had the church praying for her, everybody praying for her. And eventually, from August to about April timeframe, she was from a wheelchair to a walker to a knee scooter. And then eventually in May timeframe, she was like completely able to walk and run and everything. So
Wow.
just truly, truly blessed. But it's one of those situations like where the heck did that come from?
Right.
You know, like
Yeah.
legitimately, like where'd
Why
that
was that
come from?
necessary?
Right. And I know bad things don't come from God, but God will allow bad things to happen in order to bring him glory. Just like the blind man, some of the people were asking, well, who sinned? Was it this man or was it his parents? And,
Right.
Jesus just like, no, it's to bring glory to God. And I think that's what that was, to bring glory to God, because even though we were praying for the big miracle of her being able to walk, we were getting the small miracles, which we didn't even realize, which is the growth in the faith as a family.
Right.
And that's what happens during these hardships, because you can either just go through it or you can grow through it.
Mm.
You can become bigger and better because of what you're going through. Now, it doesn't take away the fact that you're going to feel what you're going to feel. Our
Right.
emotions are our God given gift, but it's what you do with those emotions that is so imperative. Do you give them to the world, where for a man, you get into drinking and porn and all these other things that are not of God?
Right.
Or do you give it to God, where he says, it's okay, come to me, all you who weary and burdened, and I shall give you rest.
Mm.
I am here. Give me your tears. For
Right.
I know you better than you know yourself. I know every hair on your head. And that's what we did through these small miracles that we were receiving of the growth in Christ and as a family and through the church. We finally got the bigger miracle.
Right.
God had a plan, and he did a good job of fulfilling that. It doesn't take away the pain, but it brings a comfort to know that, we have a loving father that will allow certain things for a bigger picture to come.
Right. Yeah, that
So
that application of it is something that that changes prayer, how you go about it. A lot of people would pray for the storm to lessen, or pray for it to pass quickly. But the real prayer should be, Lord, strengthen me so that I can go through this storm, so I can conquer this storm. Um, and that's something that if you think about it from God's perspective, and I know it's going to be really difficult to do that, but just think about that, the difference in prayer, right? It's like, lessen the storm, or, hey, Lord, strengthen me and give me the strength to overcome this, and may it be of purpose. Like, which one would serve a will better? Obviously the one that makes you strengthen yourself to get past.
yeah, I mean, I think it was Les Brown. I heard him say this. I listened to a lot of motivational speakers when I was going through my
Is a good
my
one. Yeah.
my stuff, but he was like, life is God's gift to us, and how we live that life is our gift to God. Make it a good gift. And so that really helped me through a lot of my trials that I had faced. Is this is this the kind of gift, when I years ago when I did look at porn, years ago when I did drink, and years ago when I was doing all these things that were contrary to what God wanted me to do? What kind of gift was I given to God? The God who gave us his only begotten son. That was no gift that was given my Lord. And so I had to change it up. It didn't happen overnight. Some people do get that miracle, but for me, it took time of just seeking God wholeheartedly. And when you do fall, you get back up with Christ, but you confess it to a brother. Hey, I looked at porn. Hey, I'm having this drinking issue. Hey, this is what's going on. These sins, they want to stay in the darkness. Oh, you'll be fine. You just looked at porn this one time. You'll be over it. Oh, you just drank this one drink or you got drunk. It's okay. It happens. You don't need to tell anybody. That's where they want you to think. But that's not God. God says expose it to the light. Share it with a brother. Have them pray for you and lift you up. Don't carry this cross alone. And when I started exposing my darkness years ago with my wife and then with my brothers, guess what? The chains were no longer there. And now I just rebuke it. I get those temptations, not a sin to be tempted. Temptation happens. Jesus was tempted. But following Jesus' examples, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes out of the mouth of God. Get behind me, darkness. I am preparing a good gift for my Lord. I'm going forward in him. And though I am not perfect, I serve a perfect God who knows what I need, and I will seek him for my comfort.
I was going to ask you, what kind of advice would you give fathers who are looking to improve their life? And I think you've pretty much answered that with that answer. I usually like to end these conversations this way, is of how do you have anything you want to say to your kids or to your wife as a bit of a time capsule piece that your youngest child sees this later on,
Oh
and
yeah,
hmm.
yeah. That's another thing I'll just add is I got a little one on the way. We named him Gideon. So the odds are against him. Unfortunately, my wife's 25 weeks pregnant. They're saying that there is no amniotic fluid, that there's cysts covering his kidneys, and his lungs are not going to be developed, and that he can pass it any day. And even if he does by miracle make it to birth, he won't live that long. But I trust in God. I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I trust in the one who brings tomorrow. And I know God will always have the final word. And so for my family, for my wife, for my children, always trust in God no matter what. Always believe that though you don't understand why we're going through the seasons we are, trust that it is to bring him glory, that there is a bigger plan at hand, that the pain will not go to waste, that these Goliaths that we face in life are for a reason. And that reason is because God sees a David inside of you and knows that you can conquer it if you follow him. But yeah.
Wow, it's a great reminder for us all, for sure. And you've definitely through the gamut. You've been through a lot of it through your story. I wanted to thank you for sharing so openly, and praise the Lord that he opened us up, to have this conversation together. And as I see it unfold and how it went, and it was an absolute joy to sit here, and I just want to say thank you for allowing me to even come into your life and to see even but a glimpse of what it was like to be Ruben, and your walk with God. And at the very least, I'm taking away a lot for myself and for my own family and for my own walk with the Lord. And yeah, I'm just so blown away by this journey. This has been
Yeah.
an amazing conversation.
No, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to be able to present this, because I've never it's normally it's just counselors and therapists. I never actually done it like this before. So it's a good time capsule. And um, that's just truly amazing just what God has put me through. And I didn't even get to talk about this guy here, but it's still truly,
I
truly
didn't bring it up
amazing.
because we had conversations about it, and
No, yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, if you want to, because you're gonna edit this, I can talk about it briefly. It's up to you. I
yeah,
have no problem.
no, we can go. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So when I was doing Spider-Man, there was women being attacked in my neighborhood in North Park, and I wanted to do something about it. And so I saw on Netflix about the real life superheroes, and I'm like, okay. And they made fun of them because they seemed like dorky guys or whatever. But there were some of them that were legit. And there was this guy named Mr. Extreme who was in San Diego, and Mr. Extreme was actually doing a campaign down in North Park against these people that were there was like one or two of them that was attacking women, trying to legitimately rape them. So I hit up my local neighborhood watch. They didn't exist. They had a title, but they didn't do anything. So after seeing this Netflix thing, I was like, let me hit up this Mr. Extreme. Let's see how legit he is. And even though he looked kind of goofy in his costume, he was legit. So he was just like, yeah, if you want to come patrol, we'll go patrol. And so what do? We go out there, we make sure they don't rape anybody, show a presence. So I was like, all right, let's do it. Do I wear a costume? He's like, yeah, put your costume on. So I put the costume on, put a bunch of things together, and went out there and did my first patrol in North Park. And it was awesome. It was incredible. Not only did I feel like I was contributing, but it helped with my PTSD because, in this category of life, hey, you have a gun and all this stuff. In this new chapter, it was all about doing something to help people on de-escalation.
Right.
And so everybody has to come up with a call sign of some sort in the real life superhero community. What's going to be your superhero name? And so I was just like, well, when I was in Iraq, I was originally called Golden Boy. I was originally called Golden Boy, but I went nuts in Iraq and I did a lot of bad things. So one of the guys changed my name to Fallen Boy. It's just like, you're not Golden Boy, you're Fallen Boy. So I kept it. So I took Fallen Boy, which was a bad chapter of my life, and I put in the real life superheroes to make that name into something good.
Wow.
And so I took Fallen Boy. And so Fallen Boy is what I went for. And it has been a crazy adventure of just going out there into the streets of downtown San Diego, helping out people in regards to being intoxicated, trying to go into the streets, as small as that, to even, I kid you not, a woman, right? This is one scenario of many. It was like 0300, and we just got done with our patrol. And there's this woman, she's in tears, she's crying, very well-dressed lady, young, probably in her early 20s. She's like, I'm so intoxicated right now. I need help. Can you please help me find like a taxi or something? And we're like, yeah, sure. And even though we wear these costumes, like people know about us.
Right.
We made ourselves known and we had a good rapport with the police. And we gave them our nonprofit organization card. And we look at her and we're like, what about that guy that's next to you, your boyfriend? And she's like, what guy? And the guy took off running. He was getting ready to attack her. He was waiting. So what they do is they find these girls when the bars are closed and they stalk them and they wait until they go into a part of the city that's not really seen, and then they do whatever they do.
Yeah.
And so that's just one scenario. And then you get these other scenarios where you get guys that want to mug the intoxicated. And the way we deal with it is, if you're going to have to profile, that's just what you have to do. So we saw a surfer guy that looked kind of raggedy with he looked kind of Korean, very dressed, well-mannered guy. But the Korean guy was like really intoxicated. And we come up to them, we're just like, hey, what's going on here? Surfer dude's, oh, no, he's my bro. We're good. And we're just like, okay. And the guy just can't even talk. The Korean guy can't even talk at all. So we're like, okay, well, hey, come with us. So we separate them. And we ask the surfer guy, okay, well, what's his name? Oh, his name's like Kim. All right. And then we talk to the guy and hey, you got your ID or something? And he shows his ID. His name was not Kim. So what he was doing is he was pretending to be his buddy, and they would try to take their wallets and stuff like that. Right. So you get scenarios like that. And then you get other scenarios where you find bodies on the ground. We found a guy that I think he looked Japanese. It's a tourist attraction area.
Yeah.
And so he was just covered in all his bodily fluids. And people just pass by. And
like
we come up
talking blood and stuff.
Like throw up, mucus, feces, everything. And I think he hit his head too, so there was a little bit of blood. But we come up on the scene, we call an ambulance. He had OD'd. And people just passing by him.
Wow.
And that's what people do. People end up pulling out their phones, not so much to call 911, but to take pictures and record. And so for us, when I got into the Extreme Justice League and the real life superhero community, I knew I wanted to make a difference and make a change. And even though it is sort of comical in the sense of, you're putting on a mask and all this stuff, there's a reason for that, to hide your identity, because we did run into drug dealers, pimps, and all these different types of crazy people that if they see you in the streets by yourself, guess what? They might come after you.
Right.
If you want extraordinary results, you got to do extraordinary things. Why do you wear the costume? Why don't you just wear regular clothes? Well, guess what? If I didn't wear the costumes, you wouldn't know the cause. You wouldn't even be talking to me right now. But because I wear the costumes, you talk to me. And I guess what I tell you about the homeless problem that we have here, that has to be done. I tell you about the people that we watch out for, and we encourage people to watch out for each other. And when something happens, like somebody's about to get attacked and there's no police around, guess what? We'll be right there. We've had scenarios where we pinned down a guy and this guy was just going all crazy and nuts. Police come and then a mob forms. And it just happens to be two Caucasian cops, and the guy turned out to be African American. And guess what they think? Oh, police brutality. So we form a perimeter around the police until other police come by. You get scenarios like that.
Wow.
And the probably the one that really strikes home to me is the homeless outreaches. You get, like a 6-year-old little girl coming out of a little tent. It shouldn't be that way, but it is, unfortunately. And
Jeez.
you hand them food, supplies, and all these different types of things, and you get to know the community on a different level. And it's not
Wow.
like the comic books though. It's knives stab you, guns will kill you. We wear bullet resistant vests. We follow by the penal codes of California in regards to citizens arrest, as far as pepper spray, the amount that you got to have,
Right.
everything. You have to do it right, because if you do end up doing
Oh,
citizens
absolutely.
arrest, you better make sure you know what you're doing. You
Right.
better make sure you have your ducks in a row. And it's all about de-escalation. We're not here to be prideful. Oh, I'm a superhero. Screw that.
Right. Nothing
No, we're
flashy
here.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah, we're here to make a difference. But guess what? If you want extraordinary results, you got to do extraordinary things. You put on a costume, people are going to ask you more questions, and that's when you direct them towards the problems.
Right. Right. Yeah, there's the responsibility piece, and that's definitely a Spider-Man thing. It's no easy thing to just do that.
Yeah. And so, after you have your probation period, and then you get that little, it's an official real life superhero badge. And
Right. I saw that. And I was like,
yeah,
it's
you
pretty
go out
cool.
there, and you do your patrols, and you do your homeless outreaches. And I even had a turnaround. I guess come back around in a circle. There was a girl that was in, I don't know if she was in the military, but she was found unconscious on the ground, young, mid 20s. And we picked her up and like, hey, what's going on? This or that. We always offer medical attention in regards to calling the ambulance, but sometimes they don't want it. So we're like, okay, as long as it doesn't look too bad, we're just like, okay. And then we walk them to their hotels or whatever, and then they go about their business. We give them our card. Hey, if anything, do you have any questions? Let us know. Well, I go into work, and like a week later, one of my coworkers comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, man, are you part of some vigilante group?" And of course, I'm quick to correct. I'm like, "Well, no, we're just vigilant. We're not vigilantes. Vigilantes are there with swords and knives and all that crap.
Right.
We're just vigilant." And I was just like, "Well, yeah, I'm part of something, yeah." And he's just like, "Well, you saved my sister." That girl that we helped was his sister.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and when we picked her up, it was like 2:30 in the morning, bro. Freaking little brick wall by herself. Young, nice looking girl. And you see a lot of that. A
Right.
lot of bad things that happen down there.
It was a party town.
What's that? Gas lamp.
Yeah, it's a
Gas.
party town, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, and wow, I can.
Yeah. So
That's
there's a lot.
crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know
There's
there's resistance getting that story out because you've probably put away a lot of people that shouldn't be in society, obviously. And I mean, I have no fear about that. This podcast isn't like super crazy or everybody will hear it. But there's a lot of points in this podcast where I'm like, man, like you've talked about people that you've helped and carried the cross, and man, I always wonder like where those people are, and I'm glad you had that moment with Suni, even though it didn't turn out the way that you expected and wanted it to. But um man, your story, you are a man of service, you are a man of servant, you are a servant to so many people, and that's encouraging to me for sure.
Yeah, I'm just a weak man serving a strong God, man. That's
Right.
the more I give to him, the more he can do.
Right.
And I'm just very blessed to have him.
Yeah, and he magnifies himself through us, and then the weaker that we are, the stronger that he looks, and that's really the joy of the journey. Are
Yeah.
there any last words you want to share, or anything that you feel you still want to get off your chest, or
No, I think I covered everything, man. Just the last quote I would say is, I forgot who the motivational speaker was. But he put it like this way: when it comes to life, pain is temporary. It may last a minute, an hour, or a day, or even a year, but eventually it will subside and something else will take its place. If you quit, however, it will last forever. And that's been one of those ones that has helped me through,
wow.
because you go forward in that pain. And if you just give up, then that pain will be forever. But if you grow through it, if you continue to strive forward in God, you will get through it, and something else will be replaced with it, something called growth, called wisdom. And that is a tool that can be used to help other brothers and sisters in the body of Christ.
Wow, beautiful. Is there any way for people to kind of follow? And I mean, I know that you're you're aspiring to use your story in a more powerful way about wanting to be a speaker, and you're going to look to write a book and stuff. Is there, if somebody was interested in your story and wanted to reach out to you, is there a way for them to do that, that you recommend?
Yeah, if anybody wants to reach out to me, right now it's just Spider-Man for a cause. Spider-Man, just how you spell it, the number four, and then a cause. And I'm on all social media groups. I'll be streaming again. I'm gonna get back into streaming. But yeah, and that's for me. It's if you have anybody that wants a Spider-Man video of encouragement, or if anybody wants to know a little bit more, let me know. That's what I got right now. Eventually, I'm just letting God kind of lead me in what direction He wants me on. So I'm kind of going off of that one for now.
And you're doing it. You're doing a fantastic job sharing the story, man. You were very real and natural, and it came out so candidly. You really weren't, hiding anything, and I'm glad that I get to be a part of your life, and I get to support you through this. And yeah, definitely. I know you for some months, and you are genuinely one of the most incredible people that I know, and you bear such a burden. And yeah, I just wanted to say thank you again. Thank you for sharing everything that you did here. Um, and yeah, hopefully we get another conversation in the future.
Yeah, I'm all about it. It's been a pleasure, definitely a blessing. So thank you for having me.
Awesome, man. All right. And so, yeah, thank you for tuning into the podcast. Thank you for, supporting wherever you are. And yeah, definitely reach out to Ruben if you are interested in any of the things that he's doing and you want to support him. Definitely stay tuned for that. We're going to have more conversations with other dads. Again, if you're a father listening to this and you are interested in this community, man, we'd love to have you. We meet up on Thursdays. We got Bible study on Mondays. We have also personal development groups that we're working on. And if you can support this work, it's not easy to be able to do this. That's why I have a Patreon and a membership. It goes to support what I do through Noble Father, and this is everything that I am committed to. This is my work, and as you've heard of Ruben's work, and I definitely would love to have your support in doing this. And so, until next time, thank you for tuning in. Bye for now.